So, for the benefit of the recording, just a quick short recap. We're not going to summarize everything, but once again, we're talking about at the very beginning of a resume, have the minimal stuff that you need. Basically, it's your name, how you want it like to be addressed. In my situation, I like to have the T in there just for that part. A good phone number so they can reach you, a good email that they can reach you. In my example here, I have my LinkedIn because I want them to look at my LinkedIn because on my LinkedIn, I have a plethora of information. Do not give them your actual address. Do not give them the city that you're actually in. You don't even need to give them the state because, once again, people will find reasons to disqualify you. Oh, they're too far away. We want somebody closer. It's still a remote job. Who cares? But
Yeah.
people just get in their mindset that, oh, they're too far away. So you eliminate those kind of things to get that thing squared away. Like I said, you don't want that published. You don't want to have your date of birth in there, any of that kind of stuff. That's not required here in the United States. So some countries do ask for that, but let's get that. But let's kind of go through here a little bit more. As you notice in my resume, you see these gray sections. So you want to come up with a summary, something that just kind of is a general statement about yourself as a summary. We'll come back and talk about what I've got written here. Another thing that you may want to have, or that you should have, is something along what is your technical skills and so forth. And technical skills comes into a variety of things. They could be literally, hey, I'm using a tool. They could be soft skills. Hey, I'm great in presenting. Whatever those skills might be, you want to kind of list them in here. You don't have to call it technical skills. You just say skills, and so forth. So I have a plethora of ones that are in here. So keep that in mind. You want to do that. Then as things progress further along, and because everybody's at different stages. Some people could be, hey, I'm writing my very first resume, period, and I don't have a lot. Well, then that's fine. That's just what it is. But you start building out what makes sense and so forth. And a skill is a skill. Hey, if your 10 key skill is there, hey, I'm fast with 10 key. I'm fast with typing. You know, hey, in this digital world of whatever it is you might be, that could be powerful to have that listed. Uh, Another thing that's helpful is having projects. As you go through and you start doing different kind of projects, you could be listing things. Um, you see a variety of different projects here that I've got listed. I know there's things that if I was to say, hey, Justin, let's go grab your resume and let's add some things to the project, it's fairly new for him. But, he put in his little thing about doing badges for, the Space Force. That's a project, little things like that. Even though they may be small or little, they're still a talking point. Now, what I'm going to share with y'all a little bit too is then you go into the experience where you start looking at, the actual job itself. Now, here's how I've done my resume. I've done my resume where the information you're seeing basically qualifies for what you hear people say, hey, only give them a one-page resume. One-page resume. You hear that from a lot of people. Have y'all heard that statement
Yes.
for everybody? Okay, cool.
Yes.
So I don't follow that rule. All right. So here's what the deal is. You make sure your one page, your first page, if you have a multiple page resume, you want to make sure the equivalent of what they need to see from a one page resume is on that first page. So that's why you have my contact information, my summary, my technical skills, my projects, and then leading into my experience. Because if you notice, I've got 7 pages over here in my resume. Okay. Because it's all of value. So what happens is here's what I have for my experience. This is the catcher. It says, hey, I'm interested in talking to this person. Fantastic. They don't need to go any further. If they want to go further and see more of my experience, well, then I have all that stuff listed. And then they can get down to the bottom where if they really want to see like my my credentials and my education and all that kind of stuff, well, that's down here at the bottom. That's not my selling point for my one page for me. Now that may be a little bit for y'all, and you have to kind of balance out what makes that. So you think of it as like a cover letter or something like that, but some people just want that one page resume. They don't want even a cover letter. So you kind of have these kind of breakdowns. But let's go back up to the top and talk about some of the things that are listed here. Okay. One of the things that I always encourage people to do is with every job, you're just basically saying who the company is, qualify that FTE, full-time employees, what that stands for, or whether you're working. So as you can see, here's Anthem, but I'm here at contract via Pinpoint. So my actual employer is Pinpoint, but I'm actually working for Anthem. So you kind of give that credit for what it's due because when they do a background check, they're going to have to go look for Pinpoint, not Anthem in this situation. So you kind of put that in. The next thing you want to do is just city, state, just so they have an idea, because now they're already going to have an idea of where you like to work, where do you interact with people. So this is some telltale signs for those kind of things. Don't have to worry about the dates. I like just doing month and year. Some people will just do year to year. I personally like to have months. So I speaking to y'all from a position of hiring people as well as people or just being, another person on the team where I'm not hiring people. So to me, I like to know that way if there's several months in between, I'm going to ask you the question, what'd you do for the 6 months that I don't see anything here? And you'll say, hey, I took a break or something of whatever nature. Hey, family issues and I had to be there for, my grandparents or whatever the scenario might be. You have that conversation to talk about it. One of the things here that I want to share with y'all is right off the bat that you see from the first page here is you'll notice that in my title, I have it as a different color. But I have everything that if it was to be printed out, still comes out on a printer in some kind of dark format. So that way it's still readable and things of that nature, but I want to be able to have it called out. Any ideals? I'm just going to ask questions from time to time. Any ideals of why you think I might have the way the summary's done, the skills are done, the projects are done? Any ideas of why I might have that done this way? Any
What
thoughts?
stands out?
Stands out, exactly. Because think about it. In the old school days, when people were submitting resumes with paper, people would start using different texture paper, different color paper, so that it would help stand out in the stack. The reason why is let's think about it. Past life, real world scenario, HR calls me and says, oh my goodness, I'm in a panic. What's going on? We've got 250 resumes already, and I've only had it out for an hour. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I was like, pull the posting. If I can't find somebody in that 250, we'll put it out for another 30 minutes or 15 minutes and see what we get. But as I'm looking at those 250 resumes that come in, I'm not going to remember the name Forrest Graham. I'm not going to remember, Angie or Bobby or anybody else's name pretty much. Some people do, some people don't, but I'm not the type. I'm the type that's going to remember the visual part of it. You remember that one resume that has those little gray lines and everything that kind of bolded it out? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I've printed everything out. Let's all start looking for that particular resume. And so that's part of the reason is kind of have that old school, but yet there within the technology to also then catch the eye that says, hey, this has got a little bit of an eye appeal as well, because it's all about sometimes presentation, your quality of your work, and so forth. So you just add those things. So does that make sense? And I think is that Bobby? Yeah, Bobby kind of nailed it in that part of it there. Any thoughts about that? And like I said, it doesn't have to be like this. I'm just giving you says
Yeah.
use these kind of features into your things that make sense for your style. I've seen people where they have the left hand side of information and the whole right hand side is all the details.
So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Should I ask them now or wait till the end?
No, let's wait. Ask them now because that's why I wanted everybody to have
Okay.
open conversations so we
So
can flow through it at the moment because I
okay.
got a ton of stuff to share.
So as at the skill level, you have your technical skills. Are we labeling all skills. So say I know like some of here could do sculpting, some of us here could do different digital media, different gaming media, and some of us are fashion people, whatnot. Are we labeling all the skills as an individual has, or just the skills that um, they would be looking for the particular job?
Skills that you have, what you as an individual can contribute. So
Okay.
not so much what it is the job has, because if the job has something you can't do, then you don't want to list as a skill because you're listening to them, the skill that you can offer to the table. It's like, when they see this one here where it says 27 languages of Windows OS, I get a lot of questions about that one. They're like, "Are you like serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm totally serious." And we go into that conversation. So you want to have it to where it's something that you can do and something you can talk to. And whether it's part of the job or not part of the job, you don't have to tailor this thing to every single job position. There's a lot of things you may want to tailor to each job position, but when it comes to your skills, you're showing off your set of saying, "Hey, I'm pretty diversified," and whatever that diversity is. And the things you kind of listed is, hey, if you're diverse in all those things and you're interested, and this job takes care of 5 out of the 10 things you got listed, then power to it. You got extra things on top of it. So it's
Okay,
what your
awesome.
skills are. Okay.
And then also under the projects,
Yeah.
what would be like what could be used as a project because a lot of us in here have only been in school. So what
Right.
would be
Exactly.
something that they could label as a project, like possibly like team group projects or
Right. So in that new scenario, because like I said, some of y'all might be new to writing a resume, might be new to the whole scenario, so you don't have a lot of stuff. Projects may come a little bit later into your resume, but exactly what you just said. Did you have a school project where y'all work collaborative together? Well, there you go. You list it. That's a project. You and two other people did this thing to make that happen. That's a project. What do you call it? And then that way you can talk to that and everything. It's like I know Justin's had a couple of things where he's worked on a couple of projects within the Art Institute. He can list those. I know the thing that he did for Space Force. He can list that. Things of that nature. I know he did something with the company he's working with. That's just a regular. What do you call it, Justin? What kind of place is that? It's not retail, but maybe it's retail. Yeah, so he can add that as kind of a project. So, sometimes you're stretching a little bit, but it gives you something to then talk about. Well, what'd you do? Tell us a little bit about it. How'd you start it up? Did you work well with your colleagues that were part of it? Things of that nature. Does that help?
yes, absolutely. And then you kind of already hit on my last question is the experience portion. Um sh- my question was should you only show experience that is similar to the job you're seeking, or should you be putting on literally every single odd job you've ever had?
What you want to do is decide what you feel like the cutoff point is. So if you're new, your resume is going to have probably it's a one pager. It may be a two pager, but you put in what you feel like you need to have. I have, which is very unusual for lots of people, I have what I call a historical resume. And I want to let you know, I'm in my 50s, pretty late 50s. That historical resume starts with my very first job back in high school. Did not count the one where I was working for the family, but it did count when I started doing stuff outside the family, and I do have that historical resume just for reference points for talking to people about career path planning and how to go about doing that. Because I dig that one up and I share them what goes on in there and how that works and so forth. But for what you're looking for is you want to figure out what your cutoff is. For me, most of the people are looking for like 10 years back. But once again, that breaks the rule of the one-page resume. That's why I emphasize here's what it is. So you want to put in w- with your job, you know, the highlights. What's the important thing? Or if it's, if it's flipping burgers at a Burger King, then it's flipping burgers at a Burger King. Well, what all did you do? Did you help with the assembly? Did you help with the preparations? Did you do some closings? Whatever those things might be, it could be that. If you're doing something totally different, you're doing some researches and whatnot for some kind of study and everything, and you got compensated for it, or maybe you just did it for the knowledge as an internship. Well, you label as an intern, FTE, intern, contract, whatever that might be. That help a little bit?
Absolutely. And my very last question, I'm sorry for hogging all this.
No problem. Somebody else will
But
speak up here in a
how
minute.
often should we be updating our resumes?
What I always recommend people do is probably depend upon the job where you're at that you're currently working on, depending on what it is and how much may change and whatnot. I'd say anywhere between, once a month to once a quarter. For me, for what you're seeing here, I probably go in and update my resume probably once a quarter, to be honest.
Okay,
But
awesome.
but with what I do, I also have a weekly spreadsheet that says this is what I did for the week. This is what I did that achieved the organizational or department goals, and give that, and then here's my impact or my accomplishments. So I've already in that practice of tracking that on a weekly basis. That helps me be able to say, hey, employer, it's time for us to do a review. And now I can talk about cherry picking out the big things from, let's say, 52 weeks ago to, 40 weeks ago to, just the other day. Because sometimes, we forget about some of the things that we might have done that was powerful. Well, then guess what? I've got all that there. So I can then come back and says, hey, I didn't do this, but every 6 months, or hey, I'm about to go look for something new, or there's some kind of layoff. Well, I've got that spreadsheet that I can fall back onto. Now, once again, that's each person's preferences of what they want to do. I share that with my colleagues that I do this for my review benefits. Does that make sense?
Yes. And also like maybe like promotions or something, you could keep
Exactly.
like track of all your stuff that you've actually worked on for the company to negotiate better.
Exactly. And there's that negotiation thing. So, somebody else had a question. I was going to speak up and ask a question. Go ahead.
I had one. So I was a student worker at the Art Institute. So I worked in the library.
Yeah.
Um, is me being laid off going to have any sort of effect on me listing that as my experience or anything?
No.
Or
No, you should
okay,
list it. Definitely.
okay,
You list of whatever it is that you're doing. And if
mhm,
that's, if that's let's say you say, hey, I'm at Art Institute and here's this and here's that. Well, then that's a bullet point within here. Or if that's, like the big focal point and you say, hey, I'm a librarian or whatever, then you say librarian. Whatever it is that makes the thing be appropriate to the reality.
mhm,
And, if it's something that's fluctuating that really didn't have a title, then you figure out what the right title is that gives you the clout, but still is the right thing. Does that make
right.
sense?
No, definitely pretty it up a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. And I'll give y'all some examples of that here in just a second. So but let's go into the next part of what I want to suggest. This is another thing that it's always challenging. It's hard for people because as you can see, I got tons of stuff that I've got here. The next thing I'm always encouraging for every job, you should come up with what you feel like your accomplishments were, if you can. Not all jobs will get that. But if you can list something you can feel like is an accomplishment, add it because this is big talking points for the interview when it comes to these people because they're like, ooh, you have some accomplishments. Can we talk about some of those? Sure. Then you can start talking about that. If your accomplishments can include anything that saved the customer or the company money, or had a reduction of hours because you helped streamline something, well that still equates to dollars. You want to include those kind of things. in this example here, it's for me, it's part about, hey, setting up, you know, strategies for things, getting things organized for people to take action on it, to streamline their practices so that they're constantly being in a supported platform, you know, organizing material, or I'm part of a governance review board or something of that nature. It could be anything, but you just start thinking about, if I can come up with one or two, maybe three accomplishments, that's all I'm looking for. I just happen to have way too many for this one. I'll be coming back trying to figure out what I want to cut from these things, but it's nice to have an accomplishment. Once again, I kind of call it out with my, my font and my lettering, just saying, hey, here's my accomplishments for this particular job. You could have a whole section where it's accomplishments, because I've seen that. I personally like to associate it, says this accomplishment associates with this company. This one here associates with this company. That's just my preference. So think about that as well whenever you can. And sometimes it's hard. And if you can't think of anything, then that's fine. That's where sometimes you talk to a mentor, you talk to a fellow coworker, you talk to a friend that knows a little bit about you, and they can start pulling stuff out, because sometimes it's hard for ourselves to see that, but somebody else might call it out. It's like, I've got colleagues that said, dude, you're very innovative about how to get people to do things that they haven't never done before. They don't want to do these things, but yet you get them done because you have a very unique way about getting it and making everybody feel good about it, even though it's not exactly the best thing, uh, and so forth. So that's an accomplishment. So you think about your soft skills along with hard facts of what you've got. So back to, let's see, was it D3L? Don't know your name, but part of the thing is back to that statement I said earlier. So here at Jaguar Land Rover, contractor via this company here, and you'll see it says Agile Coach, Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Jira RTC Admin. All right. Now this is one of these unique things where it's kind of like, what's my job? Dude, your job is like all that. Okay. What's my title? What do you want it to be? They couldn't really define it. I mean, because even when I was hired on, they're just kind of like, we just need a project manager. Okay. But then I negotiated with them and said, you really need to be looking at doing it this way and doing it this way. So we made this massive transformation. So then all of a sudden, I am their agile coach. I am their scrum master. I am their product owner. And I also am an admin of a bunch of these different tools. So therefore, my title kind of summarizes all that. So when these people contact, they see that, yes, in the HR form, it definitely says Scrum Master and Agile Coach. Now, does it say the other things? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But it's still giving the facts, because when you start looking at the details, you'll see all that stuff in here. But this is help calling it out. So does that kind of help out with kind of the example? Just kind of like right here where it says Project Manager, Business Analyst for the Mobile Connectivity Center, kind of deal, and so forth. So just keep those in mind that you can do some of these kind of things as well, but always lead with whatever if you actually have a proper title like this one here where it says Scrum Master Advisor, that technically is my title there. Now, what do I do? I'm more of an agile coach than I am a Scrum Master today. But when I started out as a Scrum Master. Have I taken on the title of the other? No. Do I want the title of the other? It's on my email. It's everywhere else. I don't need it, because in this world where I work at, uh, coaches, they're like, oh, we don't need to coach anymore. Let them go. Yeah, so we're not playing that game. So things to think about. Does that help a little bit for everybody?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. So as you can see, I kind of gone through here. Here's once again, there's that new thing. So you'll see here's Anthem as contract with Pinpoint. Here's my months and date where I was actually working for Pinpoint at Anthem, but then they hired me, and here's my hired date at Anthem where I'm actually an FTE. So you want to break the two out. So that way, if you have it, don't blend it all as one, because if you do and you start filling out all these apps and they start they start doing background checks, they'll go, hey, you told us you were there from July of 2017, but when we talk to them, they say October. What gives? Then all of a sudden they're like, hey, is this person like lying? So you just keep it true to what it is and make sure that they have the appropriate contact for both places. So keep that in mind. When you have this, you need to make sure you're keep track of who your proper employer is for when you do that for applications and things of that nature.
That is something I had. That was kind of my concern for the being laid off. If they can't contact the company, and that's really the only experience like job I've had for the last few years, what is that gonna be a problem, or would it
No,
just
because
be a
you have a
cancellation?
story, you have a backstory for that one. Can it be considered as a problem? Sure, it can be, but hey, there's lots of people that are out there that can support you on saying, hey, here's the Art Institute. This is what the Art Institute does. It's pretty well known. They could do some Googling, they can see that. What would be helpful for that too is, hey, if you can get some kind of letter of recommendation, you'll have, for the students, they'll get a transcript. For those that are not students, their staff, you can get letters from fellow colleagues and the administration to kind of support the case that you were there, to give some extra evidence in case they question that or balk at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, would
Oh,
would they
it does.
be adding references of people?
Yes, there you go. There's
Okay.
the references that help out with that too as well. And you can have a section on references. I usually have references tied into not my resume, but my cover letter, because I like to give references upon request when they ask for references, because once again, that's another talking point. So I can talk to the hiring manager, I can talk to the HR person to start getting information. Hey, they're progressing, they're actually now looking for references. So they'll reach out to me, and I already have a separate letter with all the information on my references. And I just go, and here it is. And here's my 5 references. And what you want to do for your references is, list their name, list the title that they had when you knew them, when your association is with them, and say, here's their contacts, cell phone, email, whatever it is that's deal. But put a note as a courtesy that says, this is their preferred way. They prefer you to call their office number. They prefer to call this. They prefer you to do email. So, but keep that as a separate thing so you don't blend it in here, because you don't want to give everything and not ever have that feedback. Does that make sense? And I saw some hands pop up, but I'm still getting used to the tool.
Yeah. Hi. I had a little question.
Sure, go ahead.
So, so what if you have like a reference of someone that can that you worked with in the past or was educated in the past, but they retired? Would it still be usable?
Yeah, there's still a reference, because the references come in a couple of parts. One, they worked with you, and they can speak to your credibility, and so forth, because they will ask references, because HR, when they call for your history, so when somebody calls Anthem, or now it's called Elevance, and they call, by law, they're only able to say the following things. Yes, he worked here from October 2017 to, let's say, September of this year, and his title was Scrum Master. Thank you very much. That's it. That's all HR is allowed to do. Anything else HR does is technically considered illegal, and they could be sued by you. They do not do anything more than that. So, in case you're wondering, people will ask, so who was your supervisor? It was Joe Blow. All right. They make a quick note. Joe Blow. See if we can find Joe Blow at this company. You know, oh, is there somebody we can contact? Yes. Here's this person's name and here's their number. That's where the reference is, because those people are the ones that they're going to talk to, because they're not obligated to some point. Some point they truly are, but they have to be aware of what they give, because technically they still fall in the same category as HR. But these are usually people that and everybody you give as a reference should be able to give you a good reference. Now, with that being said, qualify. So if I was to give you as a reference, personal reference, business reference, qualify which way it's going to be, what would you say? Because you want to make sure whoever's going to speak to, about you, about your skills, about your morals, your ethics, and things of that nature, they will speak highly of you. Because that's what everybody's assuming that's going to be the case. But if you haven't qualified, you might be surprised where somebody might say something that might be not as what you were quite expecting. Because you get some people it's just their personality. Their personality just says, well, if he had done something differently, well, then also like, well, wait a minute, we need all positives here. It's helping find a job. It's not, you know, all the nitty gritty details of some weird nuance that they may share. Does that make sense? So references are always good. At my age, a lot of my references have retired, but they still qualify for what it was. Keep that in mind. Just make yourself a little, letter of references with all that little tidbit of information and qualify who those are. And they're all still good. And in this situation, like we're talking about for the Art Institute situation, if that's like your employment and this is your only employment, yeah, those letter of references are going to be of value big time. And make sure you keep up with those people, keep their information current. If they change their phone number, or they have a different email address, keep that. You know, get that personal email address. Don't just get the Art Institute email address because you all know that's dead now. So keep in mind of those little tidbits. Any other questions? And if I seem like I'm rambling, just stop me.
Oh no,
I
you're
think we
good.
got it.
You're good.
All right, good deal. All right, so we kind of talked through this. We talked about how those different things come into play and how it is and so forth. And then we'll go down. We'll go down here down to the bottom. As you can see, I've got lots of stuff in here from different things. And so, what you'll see is I'm in insurance, I'm in oil, I'm in a laboratory. I'm working for the state hospital. I'm in a cancer lab. I'm all over the place. I'm working with Verizon doing different kind of things. So my skills cross different industries. So it allows me to even bring that as part of what I call my toolbox. My toolbox is full of stuff that's interchangeable and things of that nature. You'll even see where here I've got things listed where it's like, hey, looking at that recommended allocation of budgetary funds of approximately 50 million in operation expenses and 30 million in capital budgets. So that's not listed as an accomplishment. That's listed because that's what I manage. Those are my budgets that I manage. I manage budgets in the millions in this particular area. And, I had another one where, it's like $50 million. Holy crap, that's pretty big to where some people are like, hey, I only deal with things that are like a million, quarter of a million. Still, if you can show them that you manage, money, budgets, things of that nature, put that information in here. It's like here, 45 minutes to 4 to 6 minutes, massive improvement, things of that nature. So you can put things there. So we go through here and provide different things, more different types of jobs, and so on. Then you have a little bit of breakdown about talking about, what is this thing here? What did it include? And so you see a little bit of a different change in the format. Still very similar, but slightly different in the format. But it still gives all the meat and potatoes of what need to be there, short and sweet, the best you possibly can, and still get the message across. And then I threw this one thing in here that says just additional experience. Just kind of round it out because for some reason this additional experience to me just meant a lot, but I don't have it broken out. It just says, hey, from this time period to this time period, here's what I did. Boom, 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 boom. From this time period to this time period, this is what I did. I don't really probably need that anymore because, at the time I was just trying to have information. And so this used to be my resume was these jobs right here. Like they're listed at the top. Well, over time, it's like I don't need that anymore, but there's still so much different value add. I was like, hey, let me just add it in here as just general experience. So that's what that's there for. So keep in mind, you can have those different kind of things. This is not my historical resume from the first job that I had back in high school. Once again, list your education, whatever that might be. Some of y'all didn't get your degree yet. Some of y'all are still at that holding pattern of like, dadgummit, I'm just was about to get the thing. Where do we stand? This is where maybe you take some of your information about your transcript. When you guys get your transcript, or you have an idea of what that is, you can start listing some of these courses that you put in and that you did that is irrelevant to what you feel like you want to do, kind of thing. So, my resume is tailored to what it is I like doing today. And that could be being an architect, to being a scrum master, to being a solutions architect or solutions manager kind of thing. Any of those different kind of things is my niche, and that's what my resume is tailored to. But you can put in your parts of your transcript into here. You can still have your transcript in full detail, but you're highlighting the big things of what you're trying to promote yourself with. So keep that in mind. Then again, if you have certifications that are independent from the actual education, list those things in here. These are some of mine that I've got here and so forth. And certifications don't always have to apply to the work. I mean, this first certification here, yeah, the HIPAA thing, yeah, that applies to my medical side of the work. The sequels side and the DBA side and the Six Sigma side, that applies to my IT software development side of the certification. So those do happen to help me with work, but they fit in two different arenas for within my work. And when I'm in healthcare, the HIPAA one comes in handy. Powerful thing. Um, but then you have CERT. This is a certification that I have for CERT for being a voluntary community emergency response team member. But I get a certification with that. I got a certification for being part of the Medical Reserve Corps. Still, it's a certification. Those are things that says, people, hey, he has a caring heart. He does this kind of stuff as well. Then you have the actual what I like doing, Scrum Master certification with all the different layers of Scrum Master certification, and then all my little icons that show those out. So I had a little extra visual aid that this row here, this row, are all these little icons down here, plus the one just above it and the one below it. So I guess technically, if I was to select these things here, all these are the equivalent of what all these are. Because I want to give a little extra thing. People will put certifications on their resume and make them big and stand out really heavy. I like to keep it discreet but yet professional. And I saw a hand pop up.
Yeah. So would you also be putting like, say, if somebody had like clearances?
Yes. So like security clearances and things of that
Yes.
nature. Yes. So you can
Okay.
you can say certification slash clearance, security clearances, or a whole new category if you want, depending upon what it is that you've got. But
Okay.
yes, definitely. So once again, every resume is going to be different for whatever that person's got in their background. But yeah, think about the pieces. Once again, those I would put down at the lower part, unless of course the job that you're applying for says, hey, we need a security clearance. Well, then I might have that thing at the very top. Because if I'm applying for those kind of jobs, I want them to know right off the bat, hey, I'm already done,
Okay.
or if I
Awesome.
need it, I can get it, whatever that thing is, because my background says I can do it. I don't have a felony. If I had a felony, well, I'm not going to be applying for one of those jobs because you'll get disqualified real quick. Okay. Then you have personal development. What did you do for personal development? Well, some of this is here where I did IEEE things. I did some special quality assurance technique things, system testing. So professional development. I had some other things in here, but then those were up here. These SQL things and this Oracle stuff, that was down here in professional until I got a certification. Once I got a certification, they went from here up to here. So you can always stage these things. This is I'm working on, like right now, I can go add ITIL to down here, but once I get the certification, I'll put ITIL up at the top. So forth. So I can go here and comment and go ITIL. And then let's see, Lean Six Sigma. So I already have that. I don't need to repeat that and everything again. So thank y'all for reminding me about my ITIL. Okay. Then you have, if you're doing anything where you're volunteering, people like to know, do you volunteer? Is there anything that you do? If you don't, you don't. Not a big deal. But if you do, take note, add it in here. So once again, there's that certification that I got a certification with it, but it's a voluntary organization. And now I'm explaining it a little bit more differently because now I'm explaining what that really is besides the cert. There's the cert details, but here's what it is I'm volunteering for. You know, doing something here for NASCAR. It wasn't so much for NASCAR as it was for the Foundations for Children's Needs. That's what I was volunteering for. And everybody's like, they do what? And I was like, yeah, 17 millions in one night. Holy crap, lots of money for kids. So you just start putting in what you feel like is the right kind of thing. So if you do any of those kind of things, add it to it. It just shows extra character. There may be other categories that you may want to think about, just like you talked about the security clearances. What are those? If you have some military background, hey, put a little blurb in here about, hey, here's my military. This is what I did. Da, 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 so forth, because there's value add for that, or whatever that might be. Any questions on what we've covered thus so far? Because we're still not finished with resumes, believe it or not. Can y'all believe that? Because we're on page 7.
My one question is that I think you might have already said it, but whatever position that you're trying to get, would you tailor the resume for that specific position, such as like saying, okay, well, I got these certs that specifically show like maybe something that they do in that job,
Yeah.
or do we just not even care about tailoring it to the specific?
So let me answer that in 2 parts because you've tipped on 2 different areas.
Okay.
Yes, all my certs are all my certs. I'll have every single cert listed, period, regardless. Because I want them to show that, hey, I've got certs. I've got them out the wazoo. I've got tons of things, regardless whatever it is. And I want to make sure if I'm tailoring it to their thing, and if I need to be somebody that's strong with Six Sigma or a vertical DBA or whatever cert that might be that you might have, you want all those listed. Because you'll never change them. You're just going to add to them. Or if your cert gets, upgraded. So like all these 4.5s, if they go to a 5.0 and I change and I recert myself for a 5.0 or a 6 or a 7, they're not there yet. But if I do, I'm going to go back and update that. But you want all your certs being listed. What you do want to do is you're going to come back up here and you're going to go back to the summary. And in the summary, you may tailor a little bit more towards what that job is, to what that industry might be, or to what it is that you're looking to be doing within them. So you'll still keep the gist of what you have here because it speaks highly of you already. But what you may do, and I'll give you an example here is, hey, if I'm looking at a solutions manager or solutions architect, I'm going to turn around and say, hey, I'm going to take this agile coach and the scrum master thing out of here. And I'm going to talk about what have I done as a solutions architect? What have I done as, a product owner? Because that's what they're looking for. So then I'll look and say, does the rest of the stuff apply? Yes, it does. If it doesn't and I need to tweak it, this is where I do most of my modifications for tailoring it so that I don't have to be changing everything else down the road down below constantly. Same thing for my technical skills. My technical skills are my technical skills. But if I have so many like I've got way too many. I need to start figuring out how I'm going to trim some of this stuff off. And what I'd be doing is trimming off the things that don't go well rounded with the things that I'd be looking for in my employment. So if I'm looking for Agile Coach and Scrum Master, I'd still want to keep what's appropriate for that. But if I'm looking for more of a solutions manager and architect, well, does that all still apply? Yes, it does. But I might switch 1 or 2 things out to accommodate it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then as I'm got that hat on and I'm thinking of that thing being a little more special, I review, my experience and says, do I have the experience? Because if it's something to where I'm already kind of doing it, I want to look sure that do I touch some of those things in here? And if I've already got it listed, I've got it listed. Now, do I tweak maybe a few words here and there? Maybe I'll tweak a few words, but is it something that really would make a difference? Too much, not much, but now it's made my resume maybe a little more powerful because it gives more diversity to it and so forth. But if I'm going into something where I want to go from one industry to another industry, or if I want to change career paths, then yeah, I'm going to look at this really closely and say, what am I looking at? And then when you save it, you're going to label it to something that makes sense for you so you can identify and says, okay, when I'm looking for an agile coaching position or a PM kind of related position, the name of the file, I put that into the name of the file so I can easily distinguish that one from when I'm looking for something where I'm more of a solutions architect or a solutions kind of person. Does that make sense? And hopefully
Yes.
that helps. Okay. But yeah, so you're kind of building your resume to where it's solid, to where you're not constantly churning and churning, because otherwise you can be getting yourself to where you're going from one job to another job to another job, and if you tailor it to every single one, it becomes a logistical challenge for you to keep up with it and going, well, which one do I do here, and which one did I do with that? So keep in mind that situation, which brings up another thing that we'll talk about a little bit, and I'll just kind of bring it up real quickly. Is have a little tracker. You know, we'll come back to here, and I think that's a great addition. What resume? But we'll talk about this tracker here in a little bit about tracking these things, so you know where you're going, where you've been, and who your contacts are. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Any more things about the resume before I go into the deeper dive on a resume?
For example, if I am working in a company and I got promoted, how can I put that in the curriculum resume?
Perfect. So
Do I
there
have
you
to
go.
put the
So
higher one or the last one?
you put it all in here. So for example, like if I was to take, Anthem, I worked as a contractor. This is my first position, Scrum Master. Now I'm up here. I got a promotion, and I'm an FTE now. But now I'm a promotion. Now I'm a Scrum Master Advisor. So I break it out and says, hey, this is what this is from this date to this date, and I include it that way. If I've got significant things that are powerful, I will include and break those out. If you need things to go into more details, if you have a ton of stuff, you may not want to do that. But it's up to y'all. I like breaking it out. It says, hey, look, I got a promotion, here it is. And I do have some of those in here besides that. Let's see, where would that be? Night, no. Let's see, Verizon, no. Karis. So Karis, IT project manager from March to August here. And then now I am the Karis Life Sciences once again, but now I'm not the IT project manager. I'm the program and solutions manager. That was my promotion. And so now it talks about what was I doing as an IT manager, but now what am I doing as a solutions program manager? Because usually when you get a promotion, you are doing something maybe slightly different from what you did before. Don't lose that effort. And I just treat it just like that. So good question. Glad I had a good example for you there. Any other questions, y'all?
Not really a question, but more of a statement. I do
Sure.
have to probably leave real quick, but I want to just say thank you for giving us this knowledge and stuff.
Hey, no problem. How much longer do you have?
I'm gonna have to leave now, so
Bummer.
have a
Okay.
good one.
So just real quick, so you know, we're going to start talking about the properties of the resume. So check out the recording. More stuff to come. So that's where we're going to go next, everybody. Unless y'all have some more questions about the basic resume, we're going to go now into the deep, what I call the deeper dive of a resume. All
Okay,
right.
awesome. I'm
Cool.
ready.
All right, cool. So once again, if you have a resume in PDF, you have a resume in Word doc or whatever, Google Docs, and you have a resume in Word, that's all fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But if whoever you're submitting your resume comes back and says, hey, we would like to have your resume in MS Word, and you don't have it, find somebody. Find somebody that has it, whether it's a family member, whether it's a coworker, or it's just a neighbor. find somebody where you can get that thing in MS Word because they're asking. Last thing you want to do is say, "Hey, sorry, that's all I got." You know, no, they made a request. They got your resume. They're interested, but for some reason they don't want it in the PDF. They prefer this whatever format that is. So give them that format. Okay. So keep that
Okay.
in mind. All right. And as an employer, as somebody that's hired people, when I ask for that request, all of a sudden, guess what? So and so couldn't supply me an MS Word. Okay, well, we don't need to talk to that person. Let's talk to the other people that fulfill the request. I saw some hands pop up. I don't know who it is.
It was me, but honestly, I forgot the question. It went by so fast.
It'll come back to you. So, and you can always reach out to us a little bit later. But so keep that in mind. If they're asking something, it's kind of like when they give you the address and how to get to a place because they want you to do a face-to-face interview. They give it to you. This is me. Not everybody does it, but this is just me. The night before, I go find where that thing is. That way I know how to get there. I have no questions about it. Because I have known, I'm not the type to do this, but I have known some people that says, hey, if they can't find us, guess what? They're disqualified in the story. Oh, done. Yeah, hands went up. Go ahead.
Okay, I remember now. So should we be sending in digital or paper physical copies of our resumes?
We're in
What
a
is
digital
more
world now. We're in a digital world now, so it's all about digital. So
okay?
you're going to attach it via email. You're going to attach it to a job board. You're going to attach it a variety of different ways. And we'll get to those kind of things here in just a little bit too as well.
Okay.
But it's more digital. Most people don't do the paper anymore. That's why I do some of the things I do within my digital one. So it's like makes it stand out a little better. Okay, cool. All right. But yeah, because once again, an hour, the job has been posted for an hour, and I got 250 resumes. If I can't find somebody in that deal, then, I can just get some more. But it's all about, what can I do to disqualify? Oh, and keep this in mind too. If you're looking at a job and you're looking at a job on a job board that says, here's the job, and you look at it and goes, oh, I don't have this, or I don't have this, and you're dismissing yourself from applying to that position. No, 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 don't do that. If you can simply easily say, I can do 65 to 70% of what's listed, go ahead and apply for it. If you want to do it, you apply for it. Don't worry about that 30%, that 25%, or whatever that might be. Have the gumption, have the confidence says, I can do the rest of it. I just might have to learn that a little bit better. And that might be the answer. Well, I'll tell you what, I can do everything else that's on this job position, but that part, I'm going to learn how to do that, and I will succeed in doing that, but I don't actually have that experience today. You're just being honest with it. But apply. Don't let these things stop you from applying. If it asks for a certain degree, bullshit. If you can do the work, you can do the work. I don't care about the degree. There are some people that are just blankly blank A's. I won't say it. And they're just stuck that way. But majority of the people out there are like, if you can do the work, I don't care. Okay, hands went up.
Yeah, it was me. Does this also apply to certain programs too? Like, you can do this program, but you haven't learned how to do this other one.
Yes, that can be the case. So in this situation, let me take a look at it here. Like this here, these are not programs, but these are all three different things, but they're all related enough to each other to where if I can do one, I can do them all. If let's see, if I can do one, I can do them all. Kind of situation. Now, can I do all those? Yes, I can. But in the real world, if I can do one of those, I can do them all. It's like, let's see, what is another one in here? These things here, this one here. These are two different applications that even though, you're going to list what you can do, but if what you're listing you can do has an equivalent, like let's say, hey, I know Jira inside and out. Well, its competitor as a product for Jira is RTC and Agile One. I can do either one of those. Just give me a little bit of time to ramp up and figure out how they got things set up, and then I can do it. Because that's just not a big thing. It's a similar thing, similar concept. I can do them all. Does that make sense? You just may have a small, short learning curve,
Yes.
but you take the
Yeah,
time on the
I do.
side to do it. You take a little time on the side. Hey, I'm going to spend a little extra time here after work to learn this thing a little bit better because I know my Jira inside out. I know that means I just need to figure out how does RTC do the same thing, because it does the same thing, just navigates differently, or it may present slightly different, but you can still do the same thing, or with this Agile One, or whatever the case is, as the examples I'm giving y'all. Think about it. There's probably tools out there that y'all have. I mean, for those that are doing stuff that's doing this modeling, you're doing graphics design, you probably have like, 3 or 4 different tools, and you touch each one of them for this piece, and you export it over here and do this. Well, guess what? You're touching all of those to achieve the common goal. Does that help you answer that? And does it make you feel better?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So once again, it's that part of that confidence. Have the confidence with it all, because they're looking for confidence. Cool. All right. Anything else? Because these are great questions. Because once again, what you don't know, you just don't know. We're just here to help that out. All right. So let's go into the property. So I'm asking for MS Word. All right. You send me an MS Word. I'm in here and I love your resume. I love it. You're my candidate. But I have 2 other colleagues that I have to vet this with to hire for this position. I'm not the sole owner that has to hire, that can hire. If I'm the sole owner, I'll make the decision. It's done in the story. But in this situation, maybe I have 2 other colleagues that I have to group together and talk about all these resumes. And I've picked my candidate. Here's my candidate. It's Steve. I'm happy with Steve. Well, my other 2 colleagues picked 2 different other individuals. They love these other 2 individuals. All right. So how are we going to decide between these 3? What do y'all think could happen about how do they decide to pick which one out of the 3? Because you only have the one job, but
They
all 3 of us are stuck on somebody. Go ahead.
they probably pick the one that looks the most like the best formatted slash like looks nice. If it's like all jumbled up and like things over here and over there, then they're probably not gonna choose
Present
one.
presentation is a factor. That could be a
Yeah.
very part of it, the presentation. But yet, each one of us picks somebody that's special. Each one of us looks at that resume and says, this thing looks like the best things in sliced bread. So, you have that. They came into looking into the interview. They look sharp. Hey, this guy, he came into the interview. He didn't know, but he saw that I was originally from Texas and he shaved his beard. What? Why did he do that? Because the stigmatism of thinking that I was from Texas and I'm hiring somebody in Portland, Oregon, it might be better to have a clean beard, clean shaven face instead of having the beard. That's a real world story. I was like, you did what? You didn't have to do that. But he felt like he needed to. So there's those different kind of things. But you're right, that's part of it. But let's say that each one of us says, yeah, their resume looks pretty good, looks really nice and whatnot. And there's 3 of us, and we're solid in our deals. You can have it where, yeah, this is what I hated. I hate this. Well, let's just do a flip of a coin. No, I say, because I've been in that. I'm talking about a real world scenario. Let's just flip it of a coin and we'll just narrow it down by a coin toss. And I was like, by luck and by chance, I don't think we're finished with this yet. And so they said, well, what do you have? And I said, well, I have a tiebreaker. When I get down to my 2 final people and they're looking really good, because if I don't have somebody that stands out, that's just the one, because I'll pull the trigger. Once I find my one, I find my one. I'm not looking more. I found my one. I already know it. So I pull the trigger. But if I have 2 or 3, I have a tiebreaker. I introduce these people, and I'm going to show you what that tiebreaker is real quick. All right, so I'm going to go as a tiebreaker, and I'm going to first go MS Word. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to start looking at how is this actually formatted. So I'm going to turn on this little formatting icon, up here for formatting that says show me the formatting. So I can actually see how did they format the table? How did they format these columns? What did they do when they were doing this? Is the things nice and consistent? Is it clean with how they did things within the formatting? And I look through the whole thing. And this is where it gets back to, I think it was Bobby said something about it looks good. But man, when you turn the formatting on, it's amazing what that looks like all of a sudden because it's like, ooh, well, that looks pretty good, but maybe not as clean. And then you look at the second candidate and they're like, oh, well, this definitely looks better than the first one when it goes to the formatting. And then when we got to the third one, they're like, holy crap, third one looks fantastic. So needless to say, just by doing that was a determining factor. But before we turned it on, we did something else. Before we turned it on, we went into the properties. And so what we did is we went over here, we went into the properties, and we said show properties. So we get to see a little bit about the properties, not much here, but we said, okay, let's go look at the advanced properties. So let's go down to advanced and we go into here and we start looking at this and it says, okay, here's some details. Let's go to summary. Cool. They took time to put a title. Yay. Fantastic. Where it says, doesn't say something like resume, it says sketch, or it says something totally arbitrary because they didn't take time to go into the actual properties and say, hey, it's a resume. So there's that. Author. Hey, this is the guy that's interviewing. That's his name. Fantastic. Or it's her name. Cool. Oh, it's not their name. Well, who's that? Well, wait a minute. They got the same last name. So maybe it's a relative that helped them out or gave them a guidance with that there. And then, what's that company name? So, hey, I got a company name. Let's talk to them about it. Oh, wait a minute. I think I saw that in their resume. So we're good. But then if it's like a totally different person's name and we can't see relationship because we'll ask that question. So who helped you with your resume? And oh, I did it all myself. Well, then who's this person Forrest in here? Oh, well, that's my cousin. Okay, so did your cousin help you out? Well, my cousin sent me a draft of his, and I just started building off of it. So you things start saying like that. Then all of a sudden you get like a non-relative, and it's like, I hired a resume service. Okay, cool. Just wanted to know, because then we kind of have that. We look at some of the stats that are in here, and we see if there's any kind of customization going on or not. But we usually just look at the summary and the stats that says, hey, when was it created and so forth. When was it last printed? Who last saved it? Things like that. Because it says FT Graham. It doesn't actually say, Forrest T Graham and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of look at that kind of information. So once we did that, we then had an ideal roughly about out of these 3 resumes, who looked like they did it themselves. Well, when we turned the first one on, it's like, hey, that looks pretty good and whatnot. But we had questions about the resume. Then we get to the second one. It definitely looks better than the other person. And it looks like, yeah, it's probably family and or that individual. And then we get to the last one, and the other people are totally blown away. And they're like, so you're telling me this is the person? I said, well, we're going to ask them the same questions we asked everybody else, and we're going to see what happens. So we asked them and said, hey, Tim, in this situation, Tim, who did your resume? Oh, I did it myself. So can you tell me a little about why you did what you did? Oh, yeah, it's really important to make sure I do these formatting and make sure I have these things look just right. And I make sure I leverage the tools to take advantage. I mean, this guy really spoke to what he did. And we all looked at each other and said, okay, congratulations, you got the job. That was the tiebreaker and that guy stayed with the company for over 10 years, doing what he did, got promotions and so forth like that. But it was the quality of level of what he did here that broke the tiebreaker. Now, if we don't have to go to the tiebreaker, I'd never go to do all this stuff. Only when I'm in a tiebreaker situation do I do this. So just to kind of keep that in mind in the back of your head a little bit, take a little pride because this is representing you. Because this is the thing that's getting you in that door. And if they're asking for a different format and they're asking for this particular format, that means they're probably going to be doing those kind of things that I just did in front of you in the event of a tiebreaker thing. Okay. So, not trying to make it more complicated. It doesn't take much to go file properties and just fill it in with what it is that's appropriate for what you're doing. Any questions on that? I know we've been talking about it an hour and a half. I got some more information to share with y'all. Are we still good for those that are still on the call?
Yes, but I do have a question
Sure.
about the properties thing.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything in there that we should be changing other than just the name and stuff? Is it only just that
I
name,
would say,
subject, author, company?
yeah, just whatever you feel like is appropriate. For me, it's the title. Make sure the title is appropriate. If I want to put subject in here, it's all how, let's say, anal you want to be. I don't really care, kind of thing. Uh,
Okay.
but company, you might want to put something in there that's more appropriate, or just leave it blank, or yeah, it doesn't matter if it's your current employer and you're doing it at work. I don't care. That's all about transparency. No big deal. But if you want to fill in these other things, that's totally up to you. These are the three that I have, and so forth like that.
And
I
then
might add keywords for my own sanity to find it, but I'm already organized. All my resumes are in a resume folder, and I have my resumes with all the other people I'm helping out to help them get a job and help them tweak their resumes.
awesome.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then the last question that I have is there like a specific word count, or are we allowed to just um
You do
share
what you
as
feel like.
much possible information?
You just do what you feel like is the right thing. Like I said, I
Okay.
do 7 pages. A lot of people stick to the one page. I'm like, let me format my first page out of my 7 to be the equivalent of a one pager. That's usually enough to get me in the door. And then if they really want to browse through the rest of it, they can. That's up to them. You know, and I'll be honest with y'all. I got notice that my company's doing a massive layoff, 20% of the company, and I'm part of that. I've already got interviews lined up because of my resume already. And so my first interview is on Tuesday. I was notified, what was it, a week
Nice.
ago, that, hey, here's this and here's what's going on. And I've already got, an interview already lined up where I really didn't solicit it. I don't know it's just people are hearing about it. But, first I'm applying for opportunities within my company first, and then I'll start applying for things that are outside of it. But it's really, what it doesn't make the difference. And we'll talk about it. Let's talk about that, for example.
Yeah.
If you go through a recruiting firm, which is totally fine, leverage them, make them your best friends. Part of what life is nowadays. If it's something that you do and there's a recruiting firm that kind of supports that, leverage them. And a lot of times recruiting firms will put a resume into their format. So all this stuff goes away and everything. And it's like, goes into vanilla. All right. And so now here's this. So there's one position that I was like really interested with, and he came back and says they're going to pass. And I was like, pass? No way. There's no way they'd pass. In my mind, my confidence was there, totally there. I said, what did you do? And he says, well, I sent him the resume. And I said, did you send the resume y'all's template? Yes. Can you do me a favor? Will you be willing to do me a favor? He said, what's that? Can you send them my resume in the format y'all are seeing right now? Can you send me that resume in my format, and let's see if they say no. 30 minutes later, he says, you got an interview.
Hell yeah.
Presentation can make a difference. But once again, you sometimes have to work with your recruiting firm, your agency that says, hey, I really want this. I want to get in that door. Can we talk about what did y'all send, and to find out if they did do that? Then yeah, you might want to say, can you do this, and go from there. That's that negotiation. That's where you're being transparent with them and so forth. Pass on the job. Hand went up again.
Okay. Yeah. So if we have like a LinkedIn account, and
Yeah, like
we
up
want
here.
to put this on there, you know, just always on there. Um, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, should we always be keeping ourselves open to potential positions? Like should we, even when we're not looking, should we be looking?
That's up to you. What do you feel like? I don't look.
But you just keep
You
it in
know,
LinkedIn, correct? And
but if I keep
people
it
bite when they
current,
want.
what I do is I keep it current, but I don't publish my resume out here. What I do
Oh,
publish,
okay.
and let's go to here for example. So LinkedIn, and how do I go in here? And it says I want to view this by myself. Let's see. Here's this. Now I'm just trying to figure out how do I view my own thing. Experiences. Okay, so here's what it is that I've got. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Hopefully this helps out for everybody. And so what I do here is I kind of basically said, hey, this is what I do. As you can see, it's the coach, the scrum master, then there's the solutions architect and the product manager, PO kind of deal. That's what I do. That's what I like doing and everything. So then when it comes down to here in my LinkedIn, I've got all these activities, but here's my about. That's a little bit about my summary. So here's my summary in here. See more. So there's my summary. But as you notice, guess what? My summary now has what? It has these specialities. It has this extra paragraph in here that's a little different from what my summary is, because my summary is like the first paragraph of my summary from my resume. But this is more like my cover letter that says, hey, extensive background with details and worked closely with da da da. And then here's a list of my specialties that lets people know that, hey, I'm good with talking to C-level executives. Hey, I work with building management teams and helping with retention. I've done things within quality assurance, methodologies, uh, inventory control, healthcare, meaningful use act. So I have all this kind of stuff. So what you're doing is you're kind of putting in what would be on a LinkedIn situation, your resume, but more something along the line that gives some more exposure. Because what you see here is with the bullets, this is all my stuff that's related to healthcare. Here's all my stuff that's related to logistics and supply chain management. This is my stuff around software development lifecycle. Here's my thing about complex product and project management. And then here's the single things that don't really have the sub bullets. So I'm kind of putting that information in here. Then I go in here and I put in the information about my employer and so forth. So I have this kind of bit in here. And then each one of these has experience. Let's see more. What I do is I say, here's my company, here's my details, da da da. And then I'm not putting what it is that I'm doing. I'm explaining a little bit about what does the company do and what is my role with the company and so forth. So my resume and this complements each other. So keep that in mind is thinking about how you have that combination. So here's some of my duties and responsibilities, but not all of this stuff is actually on my resume. Does that make sense? And then I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about maintaining this. It's kind of a solid deal, and all I have to do is just go in and update, what the most current thing is, because I've made the other thing a little bit more holistic. And then take advantage. If you're doing these kind of things, show all 11. So there's a whole slew of these things that you can go through here, showing all these different kind of levels that are going through that. But then if you have, let's get out of experience. And then, here's your certs and those kind of different situations, your volunteer kind of stuff in here. And then you go in here and says, what are my skills? I got 31 things, so I've got several different skills listed that I've put in. And then, this is where people have ranked my skills. Yes, process
Wow.
improvement. I got 38 people says, yeah, Forrest is great with that. I've got 4 people that says, yeah, he does POS, but SDLC, he's rocking it. There's got 31 of these kind of things. And I got these endorsements that come from all these different people that say these kind of stuff. So you have that reference. And then you get it to where he says, hey, go out and give me a referral. Give me a recommendation. So then, here's what I've received, so I've got these 25. So that comes back to the other question that the person asked about, does it matter if these people are retired or no longer available? You get it in here so that way if I can't get a hold of TMOC, Well, guess what? He gave me a little snippet in here and they can look at it. Recruiters will sometimes look at that. Oh, you got a LinkedIn account. They'll look at, hey, can I leverage some of your recommendations in presenting you? Yes, you can. It's all there. So you even get employers that look at it and goes, oh wow, this guy really turns people's heads, and all that kind of stuff. So you'll see all these different kind of things listed by that. So you just ask people, hey, just put a little snippet out there for me. Because then you accept it or you deny it. It says, hey, I appreciate the words, but they really weren't as kind as what I like for it to be, or you didn't really hit the target what I'm looking for. You're just being honest with your friends and whatnot. Tim, here, he's a great guy. Love the guy. Fantastic guy, gives me good recommendations. He's not the guy I would give as my referral. He's too transparent about different things. It's like, yeah, you might hurt me.
Yeah.
Not meaning to hurt me, but he might hurt me. So, he'd be one that I'd say, yeah, I'm not going to have him go into there. So you just start thinking about these kind of things. It's like the one in here from Kevin Stadler, very short and to the point. I love his one thing. It's just he's a rare person that allows to do things, and he can come out of the chaos with organization. It's short and to the point. That was it. Love the guy's comment. So that comes into play is how do you go about using these kind of tools to take advantage of the situation and then have it where it's a complement, not as a duplicate. Because then they're just like, it's just a duplicate. They weren't creative enough to think about how to expand this as a complementary thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Hopefully this all does. And take a little bit by little bit. From me as a coach and as somebody that does agile and whatnot, take your time. 10% increments, 15% increments, iterate it over time, a little bit by little bit. Don't expect to get all the stuff done in one night, kind of thing, but leverage what the urgency says that you need to do. If the urgency says you need a resume, then you get yourself a resume. If the urgency says you need a portfolio, then you work on getting that portfolio done. Because those are the things that are the tools that you're going to be leveraging to move forward with.
Just a question on something.
Sure.
So on this, like on these recommendations and stuff like that, would it have to be someone we worked with, or like again, since we're all mostly students, would we be able to, like, if we had worked in a group with each other, would we be able to use them?
Yes, because this will actually, in this tool here, it's going to ask, what's the kind of relationship do you have? Was it a superior? Was it a coworker? Was it a colleague? Was it a friend? It gets to categorize all that kind of fun stuff.
Okay, I didn't even know this function was in there in LinkedIn. So
Yeah, me
and
neither.
there's other kind of things that are out there. I don't do all the other social media. This is the only one that I do from a business perspective.
okay. And I have one more question on something.
Sure. Go ahead.
So I'm looking at this through my resume as we're going through these, but so for like education and stuff like that, usually like I usually, since I was working towards bachelor, I was very close. I had that listed on there. Since I'm no longer working towards bachelor's or anything like that, would I have to remove that, or how would I
No,
amend that?
you still keep credit for what you did.
Okay.
Still working
All right.
on my bachelor's degree. End of story. And they'll
Okay.
ask you, so what's taking so long? College closed. Still accredited. You keep that in mind. Still accredited. So
Okay.
that may be a word you may want to add if you don't already have it in your resume that helps with this whole thing. Is, I don't know which location you're at, but I do know some of the Art Institute are still accredited. I do know some of the Art Institute locations are considered, they lost their accreditation. So,
Okay. So it's tech.
you might
Okay.
want to take a look at that one because I can't remember
I
which
definitely
location
will.
you're at.
San Antonio. But
Yeah.
I'm in contact with my dean, so I'll ask him just to make sure.
Yeah, exactly. And there's ways of finding it because I think Justin and a few others were finding their own. Yes, go ahead. Is Florida and Georgia? Because I know Virginia Beach had a close relationship with those two. Okay.
Yeah, I believe all the schools are accredited, but um they don't, like, when people say like the credits are no longer going to be, accredited after today. That's false. They will be. If anything happens, the school will let us know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah. My dean,
Right.
my
Yeah.
dean did
Agreed.
assure me, like just a few, maybe 30 minutes ago, that our credits are going to be safe no matter what. So
Right. Yeah. It's just for the ones that are considered that they lost their accreditation. That's the thing that hurts because if a university loses accreditation, then the question comes back is when did they default? They defaulted in 1990. Anything prior to 1990 is still accredited. Anything after 1990 is no longer valid. That hurts. So that's all I'm just saying. If your thing is still accredited today, you're golden. Just double check just to make sure. But add that to the resume because that might be something you may want to have because somebody's going to ask that question. Well, didn't they close? Are they still accredited?
Yeah.
And that way at least gives you that reminder. Yes. 'Cause sometimes in the resume, think about it. The resume is the talking points. This is to get you in the door. It gives them things to ask you questions. Go ahead.
My only question was like, uh say you did have something come up where the school did become unaccredited, you could still put it on your resume, correct? And just say it was previously accredited, but
Yeah.
XYZ
What
happened.
keep in mind what you're going to say is, hey, let's take for example Virginia Beach. It's accredited. We know that for a fact today. It's accredited. End of story. It's on the resume accredited. Now, if later something comes up and somebody says, "Well, according to our research, it's not accredited anymore," I said, "Yes, that might be the case, but that does not apply to me because it was accredited during my tenure there, and so it is still accredited, and you will never lose that."
Okay, awesome. Thank
Does
you.
that make sense? But sometimes
Yes.
it's that brain thinking about how to say it. Because keep in mind, the resume is also reminders for yourself. So think about sometimes what you put in here is for the trigger point for them to ask you a question and for you to be able to respond to it in more detail. That's why some of these lines are short. They're kind of cryptic, recommended improvements and drive alignment across the marketplace solutions organization. Great. Can you tell us a little bit about it? And then I start going into my little spiel, you know. So it's not always the details. It's like here, managing partners with external vendors. Great. That's what they need to know. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What does that mean? Well, I'd be working closely with my vendors. We talk about, whether it's the software, hardware, or staff, and we kind of do these things on a regular basis. We meet quarterly and so forth like that. So you can have those talking points. So remember, these are like your little reminders. So you'll always have like your resume, with you in front of you, and then you give them their little hard copies if you meet face to face. If you're doing virtual, and then you have your copy electronically or printed out. So that way, if they ask you a question, it also gives you the reminder yourself of what those things are. So keep in mind you're putting these things in here because if somebody's going to ask me about something here from 3 years ago, I'm going to need some things to help me remember what that might be. Unless of course I was like, oh, yeah, no problem. I know what ELRs are, electronic notebooks that we're doing. So keep those things in mind. So, but yeah, these are great questions, and that's why we're here to have these sessions.
We appreciate it.
Hey,
Honestly,
not a
thank you
problem.
so much for all your time and dedication.
So when you go to these job boards, we talked about the LinkedIn thing because we took advantage of that. Whoops, sorry, where does this thing go at? Okay, so we got talk to that, and then we go to these job boards. And when you start filling in these job boards, whether it's like Career Builders, whether it's like Monster, or whether it's Indeed, or whatever you might be publishing on and posting on, you have that. You also, when you go out to these different companies and you find a company that you really want to work with, get the job board. If you want to go work for a company called Satera, you want to go work for a company called Microsoft or whatever, go to their board. Don't go to one of these things. Go straight to their board. See what they got posted. Some of these things will allow you to import a resume, or they won't let you import, but they'll let you copy paste things in. Well, this particular resume might import well, might not import well. So what I encourage everybody to do is take a notepad and have this in notepad, so that way when you're hitting these job boards, and if the thing doesn't like these, a lot of these will take the whole to the document, no big deal. But sometimes they want you to fill in their fields. Boom, 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 boom. Well, copying these things in these formats into those fields, that just doesn't work. So you have another version of all the same stuff, but you have it in Notepad. So you can copy paste, copy paste, copy paste right into all those different fields that they have, because they won't let you attach a resume, or you need at least part of it filled in as it properly filled in for their tool that they have, and add the resume. So take time to fill it in, but have yourself a notepad version of just the raw text of what you're going to be putting in for the experience, for the education, for whatever the things that they might have. So that just helps you manage that yourself. That makes sense what I just explained?
That makes a lot of sense. Indeed, like, chewed up mine whenever I tried importing it.
Yeah, exactly. So you've experienced this. You know right off the bat, it's like, oh, you get there and go, oh, that looks like a mess. Well, guess what? If it looks like a mess, it looks like a mess to them. So you immediately go, delete. What do I need to do? And now you're retyping it all over again. So get one where you take it and just strip it out and put it in Notepad. You just copy this whole thing, slap in the Notepad. All this formatting goes away, and then you do whatever cleanup you need in Notepad. So that way, when you go into just a text field, you already have it in the right thing. And you have, if you want to put bullets in here, well, guess what? You do the little star in your notepad, star space, or you do a dash space to give the nuances of bullets in raw text format. Okay. So little things like that. So is everybody tracking on what I just covered? Sounds
Yes.
like some of y'all got that. All right, cool. All right, fantastic. Now here's the next thing. This is the killer. How aggressive do you want to find the job? There's a lot of those kind of things. Here, and I like using Career Builder for a couple of things, because when I go into Career Builder, here's where I get my resumes, and I get to say, hey, here's this one resume, here's this other one. I can have a max of 3, but in Career Builder, I can go over here and I can go to profiles, and I can see how many times has it been viewed, how many times has it been shared, appeared in a search. Okay, so this is important, how that works. So that comes back to this resume of what you've got. So in here in my resume, you will see certain things that I've done, and they don't call themselves out that much, but I'm going to call them out so you see it. So you see the backslash here? I have a space before and after the backslash, because the search, keep in mind, a lot of these are HR people that have no clue of whatever the job is about. They're just looking for HL7. Well, if it's HL7 with a backslash, you're probably not going to find it in that search. So I have to put a space in here. So where it says Windows and Unix, if they're not combined, most likely that's not going to show up in my search. So I do that little separation so that way I can clearly says Windows, and then here's Unix by itself. Now I could go over here and just says, hey, I'm not going to worry about Windows because I have Windows over here, so it will get picked up by that. But do I have Unix anywhere else in here? No, I do not. So let me go ahead and at least put that extra space in there for consistency. Now, another thing that you may find too as well is sometimes when it comes to these things within brackets or quotes, it may not find them. So you have to do the appropriate thing that says, hey, what do I need to do for that? So that way I can call it out. So sometimes there might be something in here where I'm needing to call it out. It says resource planning. Well, that's what the ERPs are and ELN is. They're about resource planning. So now I've given it some verbiage that then explains what that is, because there may be a gotcha for that. So you have to kind of think about some of those, not always, but there may be some of those kind of factors that you may want to consider. Is this important to have it or not have it? Does that make sense? So,
Yes.
because how those little engines work drives me up the wall. But, I was amazed at, how this is. But when you do those things and you start looking at that, what you do is you get your resume, you got it, and you're happy with it and everything. I'll hit save often. But then you start posting, you post it, and you go, wow, look, it appeared in 100 different searches. That's fantastic. And I have X number of views. That's fantastic. Now you go back and experiment. I'm going to modify my resume just a little bit. I'm going to add these extra keywords in here that are pertinent to what I'm looking for. Da da da. And let's say this was 100 in here, and you posted, and it went to 250. Ooh, I think my resume is getting more exposure. Oh, look, even my profile views increased a little bit more as a result of that. All right, that's my new resume. I'm going to keep it. I put my new resume out there, and all of a sudden my appeared in searches drop dramatically. And same thing with the profile views. Well, then I know, well, I'm going to go back to my old resume and I'm going to put it back out there, and I'm going to tweak my resume again to see if I can get that a little bit better. So over time, what you see here for me is my masterpiece resume. I've gone through this several iterations, gone through this, gone through that says, hey, this is the one that gives me the best views and the best hits because of what I did in here. And so I made sure it's very clear to capture those kind of situations, to get those hits that we have. It's kind of like here where it says TMAG. TMAG. Some may put it like that, but they may not. They may put the words. Well, here's all the words that says what TMAG is. So there's that. So just keep in mind, take advantage, use some of these, engines that are out here, these job posting boards, and use the career builder because it gives you this little functionality. It doesn't cost you a thing. Now you can pay for extra levels of different kind of stuff, but this is free for what you're seeing right now, and you can put that in there. The reason mine is all zeros because, hey, I haven't been looking for a long time. But you can go in here and put some stuff and start seeing, is what you're doing successful? Is it making a difference? And this will give you some insight to that. And so you can start working through it because, you know, for me, if I'm not working, my job is to find a job. My job, I work harder to find a job than I do when I'm working a job. And I already work a lot of stuff when I work my job. I think my son could probably testify to that. But when I'm looking for a job, it's 11-hour days kind of thing for me. I'm beating down the path of everything because that's my job, is to find a job. So hopefully this gives y'all some insight about what some of these tools can offer. Now, each one of these offers something a little different and whatnot. And based upon what you're looking for, there's different boards out there for your specialties and all that kind of stuff. You may go to some of those. And if they don't have this kind of functionality, then Career Builder, heck, use it as a litmus test to get at least an idea of, what is it doing? What's it doing for me? Okay.
Okay.
Here's the kicker. When it comes to these job boards and you're looking at posting your resume in these job boards and you're using the job boards, because sometimes it's a two-way street. You're going out here to find positions and you're also getting your resume out there to where they're finding you. Well, here's the kicker for this. If you're going out here to find the jobs, I'm going to testify it, and it's worth your while. And people don't like it, and some people are just like, I'm not going to do that. I said, well, that's your choice. I'm just giving you advice. Most of these job boards will post the majority of their new positions between 11:30 p.m. and 12:31 a.m. So what does that mean? When I'm out looking for a job, guess what? In the middle of the night, I get up around 11 o'clock. I get things staged. I get my text resume ready. I get my other resume ready, and I start looking for what jobs are out there. And so I start looking for them and start saying what it is that I'm looking for. And then there's that magical time comes in, and whoosh, here's a whole bunch of new ones that I hadn't seen. because they just now got put in as a batch. Because a lot of times they'll put in a few, but if the person requesting the job to be posted does not specify, I want you to post it now, they will batch it in at the end of the day with a batch of a whole bunch of other ones. Because it's all about whoever it is that's got the job and how they ask. And if they don't ask, it gets batched in. It gets batched in around for the midnight run when it goes out there. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to apply for that job. Remember how I told you, hey, I've had the posting out there for an hour and I got 250 hits? Pull it. I don't need it anymore. I got 250 hits. So if you're coming in at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, and there's people out there like me that's already out there, or people that get up early by nature, by 5 or 6 in the morning, they're out there searching, they'll be in there before you even get to the thing, and you're like 1,000 plus. There was a hand that popped up, I think. Sorry, I was looking at the other screen.
Oh yeah, it was me. Which time zone would this be in then for for these times?
Oh, good question. um I'm going to say what you might want to do is take a look at the server, whoever the provider is, and kind of figure out where their corporation is. And so if Career Builder's in Central Time Zone, it'll probably be most likely Central Time Zone for that midnight thing. If the company is based out of the East Coast, it'll probably be more the midnight on the East Coast time. I've never really thought about that, but good question and everything. I don't have the solid answer, but that's what I would do when I do that. I do know when I was in Texas, when I did this a lot and helped a lot of people find their jobs, most of these were hitting that central time zone. But I can't quote that. But as you're looking, you'll see it all of a sudden. It's like, wow, look at all these things start popping in. So that's depends upon how aggressive you want to be in doing it. Because once again, if you got a stack of resumes in front of you, as soon as if I'm the type and these other people are the types that says, hey, I found my three key candidates, my first 100. Well, I don't need to look at the other 1,000. You have to just keep that in mind. And with these remote job positions and remote opportunities, there's probably a ton of people out there looking from them from all around. So just a thought. I just wanted to share that tidbit. Like I said, and there's people that said, "Hey, I'm not going to do that." And I said, "Okay, that's fine." 6 to 9 months later, you found anything? No. Talk to other people that have taken my advice. Did you find something? Oh my God, I found something like less than 60 days or 90 days or whatever. I said, so what's fixing along? Well, it's kind of picky. I want to do what I wanted to do. I want to find a company that was what I was interested in doing with the job. It's not saying I want to do it my way, but it says that I wanted to take a job that was an agile position, not a project manager's position. Similar kind of thing. I could do both. I could do whichever, but I wanted to work with a company that had the mindset of being an agile versus the PMI. So, it's your preferences. Y'all have some say in what these things are, but you also have to sit there and says, I need a job. Because we'll say if you have a job, it's easier to find the next job and the better job later. And so sometimes you're looking to get a job that then help be the stepping stone to get you to the job. So, if that's the case, then that's the case. It's like, for me personally, if I go into a job and I've accepted and I've vetted it all out, and in my first 2 to 3 weeks with them, and if I'm not happy with it, then I will probably start looking for another job, because I'm looking for the one that fits. I've been pretty darn blessed. That has not been the case. But that would be what I would probably be doing is I'd be saying, hey, there's that. But I would not quit the one job because I have it because it's better to have a job to then find another job. But just keep those little tidbits in mind. And like I said, it comes back to that, text format versus the word format, the PDF or whatever. Any other questions along this kind of stuff? And you do what you feel like y'all need to do and what you feel like works best for you. Because as you start looking and doing these different kind of things, it'll come to you. It's like once we talked about, depending on what you're doing, You're going to need a portfolio. You're going to need to have a reel. Well, guess what? In your resume, you're going to have that link in your resume that's going to, for me, I've got my LinkedIn, but for you, you're going to have another thing that you may have another category section in here that says your portfolio. Then you'll have your details about your reel, your portfolio, and any other kind of little descriptions you may want to share, so they can go out and check them all out.
So would it be all right to like include like a link to the portfolios or anything like that
Yes.
in the? Okay.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Is have that in there, because this is to get you in the door, and those portfolios are valuable to have that. If you have a LinkedIn account, yeah, get that portfolio in there, and you may have 3 or 4 different links for different places. I don't know y'all's business in that area to an extreme, but I know enough that says, hey, if you're doing this, you've got one strong portfolio that's like, this is your masterpiece. But you'll have a couple other ones where it's like, hey, these are my other little genres, but this is the one that I'm really pushing. But I want to share them my other skills of my other genres that I might be having. Does that make sense? Am I using the words right for that?
No,
Yeah.
it does make sense. I have
Yeah.
one more thing, and
Sure.
this is probably relates to something way back. But I know you said that like even if you don't know like a program, you can still like apply to the job. What
Yeah,
about
that
like a
70
lot of
30
jobs are
rule.
like yeah, but a lot of jobs are like asking like you have to have like a degree, you have to have a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree, and a lot of us just don't have that right now,
Ignore it.
especially. Okay, still
What,
apply.
what, what what you're looking for is, do you have the skills to do it? Do you have the confidence to go in and do it?
Okay,
That's the biggest thing. Let's go down here, and this is me telling y'all, here it is. So, all right, this job down through here, don't have a degree. All right, this job here, same company, but been promoted all the way up to the director of the company, do not have a degree. Co-founder of this project or company here, or no, nope. Yeah, here it is. Co-founder of this company with this one here. Once again, co-founder. So I'm a founder. Don't need a degree. Don't have a degree. All right. Let's see. Electronic shipping solution. Don't have a degree. All right. Finally, where do I get my degree in here somewhere? Is where somewhere in here is where I get my degree. I get my degree right in this area here. So look at all those other positions that I had that are very prominent, pay very well, do all the things, and I don't have the degree. Most of these companies required that I have a PMI certification. I do not have a PMI certification today, nor do I care to have a PMI certification. But when it says required PMI, I'm like, why? And they're like, well, after they look at my resume, they're like, and they talk to me, they're like, there's no need. You know how to do the job. That's right. I don't need PMI. So keep that in mind. Now, if they say they got to have it and they're going to pass you, well, then they're going to pass you. But you want a company that's going to look at you and says, you've got value, and here's what it is. And you move forward, and you're tackling and knocking down the doors. Don't dismiss yourself just because that little piece of paper from HR or that posting says it has this and I don't have that. Make sense?
yeah, no, it doesn't hurt to try.
It never hurts to try, because that's the thing. Here's the deal. If you never ask, what's the answer?
I guess no.
Yeah.
It's no. It's always no. You got to ask. So that comes back to where we're getting into the negotiation. The negotiation is about, you got to ask. I see the job is posted and it has a range, because sometimes it does have a range. And it says, hey, the range is, 50 to 75,000. Based upon my experience and whatnot, I would like to be closer to the 75,000. Or, hey, I know I'm coming in new. Okay, I'm going to go for, the lower side of that, just because that's the fair thing. But I'll tell you what, if I prove myself very well for you in 90 days, can I get a 5,000 increase? Never hurts to ask. Because I know I'm coming in at the low of the end of that range because you have a range. And I'm accepting the fact that I still need a gain. But can I have a review in 90 days? And if I'm successful at the end of that 90 days and you're happy with my performance, can I get an increase of at least 5,000 maybe or 2,000 or something? You negotiate a figure so that way at the end of 90 days and you bust your butt to be successful and you do what you need to do at the end of that 90 days, they'll say, hey, this was really good. And yes, we promise you we'd do that. Here's your money. So that way, when it comes to the annual review, guess what? You're now up an extra 5,000 or whatever that figure is. So that's where some of the negotiation comes into play. Negotiation could be as simple as saying, hey, I don't know what you have. What is it you're looking for on that? Well, I think the market value, because you've already done market value research a little ahead of time, you know what your value is. You know what the market value is for these roles. And you know if they're lowballing you or if they're being fair with it. I applied for this one job and the guy extended me the offer. And I was like, cool, this is fantastic. Got this offer. But then I had two other offers that came in and they beat that one. But the first one was like, man, I really like that job. But the other ones pay more and I'm a new family man. I need to have the dollars. I can still do the other ones, but this is the one I really like and everything. Come back home and I have a voicemail from that person. He says, hey, I just want to tell you, I don't think I'm being really fair with my offer. I want to change my offer and increase it. He increased it to the value of what the other ones were. And I passed those other ones and took that one because, oh my goodness, now I have a boss that has the integrity that says, I think I undersold what I should have offered you in the first place. You have to kind of look at some of those kind of situations too as well. You could have it to where, you can talk about negotiating things and you're just asking, hey, can we negotiate the insurance premium? Because I'm coming in as a full-time employee and you have insurance, but I know I have to pay a premium for that. Depending upon the size of the company, depending upon the structure of the company, they're like, hey, you got to pay, let's say, for example, $200 for insurance premium for the family. I'm just hypothetically throwing out numbers. Here's this. Can we negotiate that a little bit? And they're like, well, what are you thinking? And it was like, well, maybe $135 instead. This is a real world scenario, y'all. I'm giving y'all this. And all of a sudden, this little piece of paper from his hand slides across the desk. Can't say nothing. Slides across the desk. And I pick it up. And it says 79. I said, tell you what, instead of 135, can I say 79? He says, yes, we can make your premiums at $79. Thank you for negotiating and asking that question. But if I never asked, we would never even got to that. But because I asked, he was intrigued enough to sit there and says, I'll even lower it for you based upon whatever you tell me. So you just never know what might happen. But then again, you might go, no, we can't negotiate that. But I can negotiate something else. And then that sparks the ear. So now you're in this negotiation mode of what can they negotiate or not negotiate. Some places can't, but depending upon where you're at and what you're doing, you just never know. But don't assume it's a no. But understand what you're looking for. Understand what's crossing the line and what's acceptable or not acceptable. It's like I told y'all about the gentleman that was going from blue collar to white collar. All right, here's what you're going to do. Here's how you're going to do your resume. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to post it this way. You're going to present this. We're going to look at it. We're going to tweak it. We're going to do some dress rehearsals. We're going to talk about your verbiage and how you explain some of these things to make sure you're successful. He finally finds that job that offers him a position. He calls me back excited, all excited. He's like, I want to negotiate. And I said, are you sure? Do you feel like this is fair? He says, I think I can get more. I was like, okay, but don't cross the line to where they're like, oh, we'll pass. So he did. And they agreed, or they came back with an acceptable counter. And he's like, I want to push again. I said, now be careful, because now you're pushing twice, and that may not be well respected, and so forth. But he gambled for what it is that he wanted to push on. He gambled, and he called me back and says they gave it to me because he asked for something slightly a little different on the counter. It doesn't mean much. It's like, for example, here, and I'll give you this example. So there's a couple of different ones in here, but I'll give you this example. Here it was with Anthem. Here, so I'm working here with them. Got that squared away. Got all that squared away. Negotiated with Pinpoint the maximum figure I can get. So we've negotiated that and everything. So no big deal. All looking good and everything. Then Anthem wants to hire me full time. Fantastic. So I'm already working here, showing my value. They want to hire me full time. They give me an offer. I declined it right off the bat. I was like, sorry, because I looked at it and it was not acceptable. Sorry, can't take it. Well, what would be acceptable? So then I explained to them what would be acceptable. They went, talked to their right people. They actually had to give a VP sign off, and yeah, I got what I want, what I asked for, and it went from there. But it's all in what you're doing. So once again, what are you showing? In this situation, they had already seen the value add because I'd already been working there a couple of months already. So they already saw the value add. So now it's a matter of saying, hey, let's get this guy on board. So, that's a different kind of circumstance. But once again, that put me in that power play to be able to do that. And I said, it'd be nice. I appreciate it and everything, but it's not the right offer for me to step away. I could go do that anywhere. What makes it worthwhile for this? And what made it worthwhile was the title. Don't set me up as Scrum Master, set me up as an advisor. And as an advisor, that got me more pay, got me all the other different things I was looking for. And they were excited about it all. So keep that in mind. Those are things, but you have to go with what your comfort zone is too, what your gut is, and be soft with it. Don't be overly firm, but but inquire. I know I'm kind of beating that one down the path a little bit, but you have to figure it out in your own situation, your own comfort zones, and what's going on that says, is it worth for me to ask? It never hurts to ask, but don't be pushy with it. Be polite with it, be respectful with it, because those things make a difference. Like the situation with the one guy. I asked, he was intrigued. I gave a number, and he was like, I can do better. He can't say that. He wouldn't say that, but he wrote it down on a piece of paper and slid it over for me to turn around and ask. Now, I can't sit there and say it's going to happen all the time, but in that one scenario, that really happened.
Okay, so go in confident, but be respectful.
Yeah, go in confident, be respectful. Exactly. I mean, and I'll be honest, when that was a job in California, I was living in Texas. And here's the thing that I had. As soon as I walked in the door, the person at the receptionist was like, and who are you? And I explained it like, dang. Good luck with the interview. By the way, you got the job just because you showed up. But now it's up to you to do what you're going to do after that. So now the game was on for negotiation because he basically said they were so impressed in the fact that you showed up because the pool, he said he lost the pool because he's like, he won't show up. And then when I walked in the door, they were like, holy crap, he's here. And so, and that's what they said. You've got the job. Now, did I have it? No, I didn't have it. But it gave me that extra vote of confidence that says, hey, I think this is a pretty good little deal. Now, I've been in a situation where I went through an interview and I already did that pre thing. I had to run by the night before, so I knew it. It was my second interview in the afternoon. My first interview went pretty well. I'm going to this one and I have a tire blowout. Okay. Pre cell phone, can't call nobody. So I'm getting the thing, getting it changed out as quickly as I can. Okay, yeah, I'm dirty. I get my butt up there. I'm a little bit late. Run in real quick and say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm running a little bit late. Had a tire blowout and everything. And is there a place where I can wash my hand and can I still have my interview? And they looked at me and said, sure, restroom's over here. We'll talk to so and so and we'll get you in for your interview. On the way out, that person at the front desk said, when they called me and asked me, and I confirmed what all transpired down, I said, "This is the guy that you want to hire." And I was like, "Okay," so forth. And so she told me that and said, "Good luck. We'll see where it happens." But I gave an endorsement for you because they always ask me, what do I think from the person that walked in and how they presented themselves when they walked in. So depending upon where it is, and if you're frazzled because of something like that, go in and do it. Make the call. Let them know, hey, if you got a cell phone, let them know, hey, I'm going to be running late. Got a little bit of this here. Can I still do it? Can I still come in? And everything. And they may say, no, we'll reschedule it. Let's get that squared away. Or they may say, yeah, come on down. Cell phone makes a big difference. But back then, we didn't have cell phones. Showing my age. Sorry, y'all. But confidence is a big factor. Be confident about what you know. You know what you know. You know what you don't know. And don't be blowing smoke about the stuff you don't know. Be transparent. Be honest with it. I don't know that, but I'll tell you what, I definitely will know that shortly. Just give me a little bit of time. Give me a little bit of exposure to it. I will know that. I will get that squared away. Because, like, if you're going for a career change, and here it is, quality assurance analyst lead. This was my career change. This is when I got into technology. I was back there taking this job, working actually for this company here. This is the company, and I took the career change. But look at it. Here's where I started off as quality assurance. But since 6 months later, I'm now an architect within that group, leading them on their new version of what they're coming into. That's the biggest impact that I made. But I also, when I first went into this job, had a great interview. And I said, thanks, but I'm going to have to pass. And they said, what? And I said, I can't make the salary jump. I'm taking a pay cut as it is, but I cannot make the jump to accommodate what I need for my family. So I appreciate the support position. I was being interviewed for a support position, and I was telling them that. They were so impressed. They said, they called me up like the next day and said, we were very impressed with your interview. We'd like to call you back in to talk to us about a quality assurance position that we do feel like the money will be in the appropriate range for you. And I said, cool. So I went in and interviewed for that, and they offered me the job. I also told them, I said, I expect at the end of the year, when my annual review is, that I will be making the income that I'm accustomed to making and not be having this lower pay. And they said, okay, we should be able to do that. So when that interview time came around, or not interview, but when that review came around, they gave me my increase and whatnot. And I looked at them and says, this isn't what we talked about. Well, da da da. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Fair enough. So then I went out and interviewed, and I interviewed for this company. Guess what? They were willing to give me the money that I was making before. And so I gave the other company a notice. They came back and says, we'd like for you to stay. And because you haven't told anybody that you're leaving except for your leadership, here's our counteroffer. And I said, well, thank you, but your integrity of what we talked about wasn't there. I appreciate it. I love y'all all, the greatest. I still talk to some of these people from time to time and whatnot, but I'm going to move on. So I moved on to this other company just because of that. So you just never know. Sometimes maybe I'm a little too transparent at times, but it is what it is. So I moved to this company as doing quality assurance as well. But shortly later, my boss is stepping into a totally different new role. And he comes to me and says, hey, you've been awesome with what you do. Would you like to apply for my job as the manager? Sure. I would definitely like to do that. Who do I need to talk to? Well, you're going to go talk to the COO. And then if he's happy with it, then you go talk to the president of the company. Okay. Needless to say. And then when I accepted that position from the COO, we made a handshake deal and negotiated certain terms of what was going to transpire in that role. Once again, they were already familiar with me. They were already familiar with what I was doing. And I gave him certain conditions, not about salary, but I gave him certain conditions about how the structure of the department is going to be. and that I would not be reporting to the IT group, but I would be reporting to the COO, him directly, and that I'd be giving him the appropriate information that he needed to have to move forward with the different kind of things and so far. And he said, deal. And so I immediately went into what I needed to cover with him. So then guess what? A little bit later, it's a little bit later, but remember how we talked about certain things from the year of up to 1999, quality assurance manager. Well, that's that overlap. But in this time period here, I then became later the director of quality assurance customer server for Americas. And quality assurance was director was globally. So yeah, a couple of different promotions along the way. So you just have to look at these things and be honest with yourself. Be transparent with what you're doing. That's the big thing I'm good with. But be guarded too as well, because there's always those people that want your job. They want to take what you're doing. So be with respect of what you're doing, being transparent with in the right amount of way, but yet also watch your back. Hopefully, all this is very helpful for y'all. I mean, I know we're going on what almost 2.5 hours here, but
Yeah, it's
hopefully all
very
this stuff has
helpful.
been helpful and everything. And that's what I just wanted to share, because the few minutes I talked to the people at Virginia Beach on the curb, they're like, "Can you talk more about all this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I sure can." And
Well, I can
sometimes that's
guarantee we all appreciate your time.
yeah. Well, I think the stories help to go along with it a little bit to let you realize that these are real scenarios.
Yeah.
And the reasons why I did the certain things of how I listed it in the resume, how you go about the certain practices and whatnot. But like I said, I'm reaching out to a couple of people. I think, let me see. Kelly replied back with something. I don't know what he says here. Let's see. Da, da. Yeah, he says, he'll get with me tomorrow. I'll talk to him. I'll talk to Barbara and a few other people about, hey, can they come and do one of these kind of sessions and talk to you about, for those that need a portfolio, what is it that they do, how they go about structuring it, a reel and sort of like that. I've already got a couple of people have already sent me reels. They said that I'm not good about speaking and talking to people, but you can share my reel, so I'll get that out to people that need that kind of stuff. Because once again, as an art institute, y'all are across the gamut of whatever it is you're looking for. But I thought, hey, this wouldn't hurt to talk about some of these things, and we'll do another session because sometimes this is good for everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a lot of animation too.
Oh yeah. So when I met them, they were all working with Jaguar Land Rover, and they were doing the R&D for the things that are in the car, in the infotainment system. So they were, here it is, a big, nice little flat screen that you've got here. There's a touch screen and does everything from controlling the air conditioning unit, the software updates, the tracking the car, to the different, the radio stations, AC, and all that kind of stuff. And they're doing all the graphical things for that, designing 3D things within some of those different pieces for the touch screen and stuff like that. But that was just where I met them at. They do a ton of other different kind of things. Yeah. One of the person, Barbara, for example, she does these storyline sketches. They're just phenomenal of what it is about the storyline for commercials and things of that nature. So, just because they were doing this there doesn't mean they don't have all this other kind of experience to the offer. And so that's why I wanted to reach out to them and say, hey, do y'all, can they spend a little time talking to y'all that are in that niche, so that way you can get some value add from that, because that's another part of what you're doing to market yourself. Just like we talked about, yes, include those, portfolio links in your resume. Remember, when it comes to the negotiation, because this is what I found out when I was working in Jaguar, talking to these guys that are 40s, and I mentioned something about negotiation. They're like, "What do you mean negotiation?" So I explained to them, how and why and what are the topics I negotiate. I don't give them figures, but I can give them those examples. They're like, I've been in the workforce for 20 plus years and never even thought about that. And I was like, well, you might want to consider some of that and everything. Go ahead. There's questions.
So on your resume, do you ever put what like um what is the word I'm looking for? Like the amount of money you want to work for?
Oh, no.
Never,
No.
right? Okay.
I never publish that. I do look to see if they publish it,
Okay.
and if they don't publish it, that's fine. If they do, then I know what the range is and I know where my skills fit within that range. And I'm always looking for just that little extra more for that and everything. But it's kind of like, when I talked to you about the one for Anthem, I turned it down because the cap for what they were given, sorry, that wasn't going to work. The next level up, the gap gave me room to grow. So that's the other thing you need to look at too, is that if you come into a position and they give you a range and you're close to the top of the cap, you need to sit there and ask, well, is there another grade level up? Because the cap will be coming around soon and then I'm capped. And you'd have to get the promotion to get that extra increase. Well, why not go ahead if you're that close to it, negotiate and says, let me get into the bottom of that other one, or not the bottom, but in the mid range of that other one that's comfortable for what is there, but you have a higher ceiling gap of that cap. If the situation has that. Question?
And then yeah, my last question is, um, if you have any type of social media and whatnot, should you put it all on like private and whatnot, just so no like your potential employers aren't like, if they do research your
Browsing it?
name, they're not just like looking at all your, unprofessionalism.
Unprofessionalism, keyword, yes. I would say it's your choice. I would encourage it.
Okay.
I will say, for example, Jaguar Land Rover did browse the employees' social media. And if anybody spoke about anything about what they were doing at Jaguar Land Rover on their social media, it was immediate termination because
Oh
we were
wow.
doing R&D. That means research and development. That means anything that we shared was not public knowledge, and that gave competitive advantages, and we could not afford a leak. And they would actually monitor those things. And if you put something out there about something that we were doing, it was immediate termination. So each company's different in what
Okay.
they vary on. But if you're a little bit on one thing or another, yeah, you might want to say, hey, maybe I just do want to have it a little bit more as a private thing. Um, just keeping that in mind. Now, if for example, because we were doing R&D, we could not talk about things that we were developing and what we were doing, because in the automobile industry, we had requirements that we were looking into for the future. Our future scope was 50 years into the future. That's
Oh
how
wow.
far in the future automobiles look. They look 50 years in the future. When I left, we actually re-looked at everything and said technology's picked up. It's not even 50 years now; it's like 35 years into the future. It takes them 7 years to kind of come from a concept to actually finally get the thing get it into a car and get the car done. Is on the average about 7 years from the creation side of it all. And so there's different things, and we're trying to help accelerate that through our R&D. Now, because we couldn't talk about any of this, now if we took something and something that we had from our R&D went to, let's say, a trade show to talk about the future, well, as soon as it went to the trade show and post publicly announced, we could then talk about it. But most of us all agreed, don't put that on your social media, but at least we can talk about it and everything. Because we were doing some stuff that was pretty impressive stuff and everything, to where now, and we were doing it for open source community, within the automobile industry to where it's like, did you just see what Volvo just did with our open source? We could literally see certain companies taking the open source and actually applying it into their vehicles. I've got a new car now that's like, wow, here's some of the stuff that we did in open source, all the way down to the graphics. That's why I was like, holy crap, look at this. They didn't even change some of this stuff. So, it's pretty impressive. But yeah, social media for them, yeah, immediate termination. And there are companies out there you hear about that. There's other companies that can care less. But you have to keep in mind, are you now talking about what they do versus some of your own particular things? But if they've got a bias, you probably just want to edge your bet and says, hey, I don't even want to show my personal bias on anything particular. So that's just food for thought. Do what you feel like is the right thing for yourselves.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
And,
that.
and thanks, Justin, for letting us have the conversation talking, because this allows us to dynamically respond and shift to different questions, different directions, different things of that nature. I think I've hit the highlights of really what I want to make sure, but the questions really drive, part of where do we go with this? Where does this go? And things like that. So I think it's been very helpful for all y'all and helpful for myself, because you even saw me update my resume right there in front of y'all with some tweaks there. But we're going to line up another session, for other people for a different time. And if y'all want to come back, you're more than happy to come back, because once again, this all is driven from y'all's conversation, y'all's kind of asking questions to kind of figure out what needs to be there and see if I can answer it, because y'all may even come back later. And this is the thing, when you have these kind of conversations, I look at it this way when I work with my staff and my people. If you think of something and you have a dream about it, and hopefully it's not going to be a nightmare about it, or you have some kind of epiphany, 24, 48 hours later, come back and ask some questions. Come back and ask some questions in the forum, and we'll get that squared away. I don't monitor it, but I think Justin's monitoring more than I am. He can come back and says, hey, here's some things, here's some questions that have, and then we can include that in the next session, and then we can do some responses back to those things. So don't think of it just passes and this is the one-time thing. Just think about it as just another another networking opportunity
Right,
in these
awesome.
things. And like I said, I'll try to see what I can find out about, who would be a good source to talk to y'all about, because once again, these student loans and the dynamics, all the student loans, they're all over the place, and we might be able to find somebody that can help represent some of that. It's kind of the things that I tell people is like, hey, this is so big, this is not about you going and getting a lawyer. This is about saying, hey, is there already a class action lawsuit already going on that you just ducktail in and see, does it fulfill your needs? And if it does, then great. And if it doesn't, then you're linked to it, but then you spin off for whatever it is you're needing to do. I don't know the full situations. I don't know what everybody's scenarios are and what their position is, but keep in mind that there's some of that. And so somebody might be willing to share some stuff, but there may be people that's like, no, I can't really speak to that. I don't know. I'll explore it, because it's not like I don't have that for Justin, but we didn't do a student loan, just so you know. We would just paint it as he goes. What happens there where all of a sudden he's not able to transfer these credits and all that? Well, we knew that up front. They already said that, hey, these things are non-transferable. So we know that. So, what kind of case do we have? Did he finish what he needed to have to get the degree? Portfolio creation class is not part of a degree. That is part of how you market yourself. That should not be part of the degree. I don't know. So we'll have to look at seeing what does that happen? What does that mean? So, things like that. But we're all in different pitches where we are. And I probably should ask y'all, what is it that each one of y'all do? Not just say, hey, what state and what city you're in, but what was your niche or what was your degree you're going for? So, maybe I get to hear on what that is. Can each one of y'all tell me what your career path was or is?
Media arts and animation.
Cool.
Also, media arts animation.
Excuse me.
Julio's talking. You
Hi.
have to speak up, bud.
May I ask a question?
Yeah. Feel free to ask a question. We were just asking what was everybody's what they're planning on doing. But go ahead, Julia.
So I've applied to jobs in the past, which led me to a question because as an individual, I feel like I'm applying to these companies and these businesses, right? But I feel like I'm alone, and it's hard to progress my thinking of the application process. And I frequently find questions I ask go unanswered. So my question was, how do I present myself, and what kind of questions do I need to ask to, like, the kind of answers and questions for anyone in the world in an interview process? What are the questions I need to ask to
Okay.
to
So
better inform myself, not necessarily ensure I get the job?
right. So there's a series of kinds of questions that I can work that up for y'all because I do have a series of kind of questions that are pretty common that the employer will ask you. Some of the things that you're going to be looking for is what is important for you and y'all. I can come up with some basic canned questions that I have done for my niche, my industry that are well-rounded kind of things. But part of the things that you're going to look for is sort of things that have meaning and value to you. You may have something a little different value from what I might have. So you may have a different question from my particular question. But you're definitely going to want to do a little bit of research because once again, these employers love it when you've done a little research about them and their company to ask them the kind of questions that you're interested with. One of the questions that, may be of value for some people is, hey, are you a publicly traded company? And if so, where's your standing? There's that sometimes is value for people. Uh, so it's just a plethora of different kind of things. Do you support this kind of process? Let's say, I'll take my technology thing. Are you an agile shop or you're a waterfall shop? Are you a hybrid? For that kind of situation. Where's the direction of the company going? Do y'all have a roadmap? What's that roadmap look like? Is it 6 months in the future? Do you have a roadmap that's out to 3 years into the future? Where can I find that on your website? Because then that also lets you know where are they going. Now, asking the question about, hey, what's the company's vision and mission? Don't ask that question because they're going to sit there and say, well, dude, you couldn't even go to our website and look that one up yourself because they all have their vision and mission posted out there. What you do is you read the vision and mission and it says, hey, I see your vision or your mission is this. Can you tell me how you're going about achieving that? That's your question. But you got to know what their vision and mission is ahead of time. You got to do your due
Excuse
diligence.
me.
Does that kind of help a little bit? And like I said, I can
When
come
you
up
were
with some
talking about
additional questions
vision and mission, that
for the
reminded me
companies.
of one of my
Yeah.
questions that I had while sitting in interviews and during my application process. Specifically, I asked, what's the job title of the person that I should be asking for this job, or who would I work under? Like any kind of direct contact information, because if I had that question, I was probably talking to, let's say, for example, the receptionist, right? And yeah, I never got an answer. So I could never ask what was required of me from the job which I was applying for.
Right. For that one, you want to rephrase and it
I'm
says,
I'm a
what?
day one employee. Like I don't really know
Right,
as much
exactly.
as how to write my application, my resume.
Right. So what you're going to ask on that is you're going to rephrase the question says, and you're just flat out, what's the title of the hiring manager? And can I get that person's name? You're not going to be vague. You're going to be very point blank. What's the title of the hiring person? And can I get their name? And if they give you the name, great, you got the contact. Sometimes they won't give that, but they at least tell you, oh, it's the manager of this, or it's the director of this, or it's whatever, because they usually can respond to who the hiring person is. Now, if the person at the front desk doesn't know, they should respond, I don't know. You'll have to wait till you get to the interview. Okay. Well, then you ask that question in the interview. But like I said, you don't want to go into the interview asking the question about what their vision and mission statement is, because the first thing they're going to think is, well, he didn't even go to our website to take a look at what it is. Because what they'd be impressed with is saying, hey, your vision or mission statement says this. What is your roadmap? What's your game plan to achieve that? How successful are y'all in achieving that? Questions like that. But I will, when we do the next session, I'll have a series of those kind of things, and I can come up with a few of these things and put that out there, because you can't always have the can answer for all these things and the can question for everything, but you can come up with some good ones that could be there. A lot of it also shows that you do the due diligence ahead of time to do a little research about that company itself. Are they publicly traded or are they not publicly traded? Things of that nature. Does that help a little bit?
When do
I
you
think
think you'll be doing the next uh session, I guess we would say?
When would y'all like?
Um like preferably within the next week to 2 weeks, just so we could get people up in here to actually attend so they could have a little bit more notice. I know that we gave them like a week or something for notice on this class.
Yeah. And I think
Um
it's up to y'all to also then help communicate that and share what you feel like is the value add. This is, hey, value add was very positive. We'd like to encourage y'all. And if some of y'all want to come back, you'll hear some of the repeat stuff, but you may hear some additional things like, when I come with the list of the questions, says, here's some questions to think about. Because these are the kind of questions they're going to ask.
yeah.
And here's some kind of questions that y'all can ask, but this is what you have to do in preparations to ask that kind of question. Because once again, you don't want to be insert foot in the mouth by not having the right kind of question, or where they go, well, duh, he could have done this or she could have done that. Because I've had people ask those kind of questions in interviews, and afterwards, when they leave, they're like, they didn't even do the basic due diligence themselves to figure out that answer to come up with what we could have done from there. So keep those things in mind.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So would a week be enough time?
Yeah, I think there would be enough time to get at least, another 10 to 20 people, because I came in just slightly late, so I don't know what was, obviously discussed earlier on, but obviously we're going to have this recorded so I could go back and listen. But we also want to make sure that people could have a chance to come in and ask their own personal questions, because they may have, just had work tonight, or, whatever,
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. And we can always, toggle the time a little differently too, as well, if we do the same day. And I'll give you an example. So, when I did this the very first time within my first group, that said, hey, you talk about these things. Do you mind talking to a group of us that are getting laid off? And I said, sure. So I had about a dozen people show up, and they said, so you're having two sessions. Can we come back for the other one for some additional questions if we have it? And just help refortify what we just learned. And I said, sure, no problem. They said, can we invite other people? And I said, sure, I don't mind. It was almost 45 plus people in the next one around, because they put the word out and said, come. So it all varies on what you feel like is a value add or not. But if y'all feel like there's value add, then please, share them and say, hey, it's worth listening if this fits your needs.
Oh, it's definitely worth listening. I've already learned like at least 5 or 6 things, so I really appreciate your time. I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody else does as well, and
Yeah.
hopefully we could, set up another
And I'm sorry it's
session.
gone so long, but hey, I think it's been really good for y'all. I think I go by the pace of how the questions are going, and then also the fact that, hey, brain overload. Let's keep that in mind. We're pushing almost 3 hours now. Holy crap!
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it.
Oh, we're under 2.5. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm looking at the clock right. But yeah,
No, I'm definitely very thankful for it. Does your schedule work, I guess, for 1 week?
for me.
Yeah. I don't know how
Oh,
you're,
well,
if any,
let me clarify this again. In case you missed the part of it, my company's doing a layoff, and I'm on that list of layoffs. So I'm really pretty flexible for anybody and everybody because I'm out doing exactly what I'm preaching to y'all. I'm actually out there doing it and whatnot. It's still working with my company through some of the transitions and whatnot. And I've gotten people that have reached out to me and says, "Hey, we're sorry to lose you, but here's 25 jobs on another division. Give them a call and see if they can get you on board because we'd hate to lose you to a competitor." With that being said, I've already got a competitor that's found out that, hey, I'm leaving and they've got me an interview Tuesday. So
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those kind of situations. So I'm pretty flexible right now and so forth. And I'm doing the exact same thing that I'm doing with y'all. I am lining up to do for everybody in that 20%. That's probably about 10,000 people in total being laid off this round. And I'm doing a session lining up next week to do that during the middle of the week during the work hours because they're like, should we do it on the weekend? I said, why? Aren't we all getting laid off? Yes. Don't you think you can find time for yourself? Because isn't that what this transition period is for you to help you find yourself something else? Oh,
Yeah.
never thought of it like that. And I said, put yourself first now, because company's already told you they're putting themselves first for whatever stupid reason it is that you got picked. So be it. But don't worry about it. Let's move forward. And so they're like, okay, we'll do that. So I'm doing the same kind of session for them next week as well. And I'll be doing another one before I leave on the 20th.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty flexible about it all. I mean, the first day when I came in to talk to people, I said, "Hey, just want to let you know I've done the following things. Here's my little gift to y'all." And because I do these special reports with these tools, and I did the special report, and I said, because I've been teaching people how to use this tool and how to make these reports, and I said between now and December, these were the reports I was planning on sharing with y'all. I just went ahead and said, I just went ahead and did them, broke them down, wrote up the documentation. This is my gift to y'all. And they're like, so what's the purpose of the gift? I said, because I'm part of the layoff. So in the story, and they're like, holy crap, you're doing this and you're part of the layoff? Well, thanks. And they made me cry from all the accolades, and I appreciate it. But I was like, I had to go on mute and everything. But they're like, because I was texting back, and they're like, hey, he's probably crying right now. Let's just stop talking about how good he is and so forth. So made me feel good. But once again, spilled milk, can't deal with it. It's just what it is. We have to move on. We have to ride that situation and get on the horse and keep going. And that's the same situation
Exactly.
here for y'all. You've got to keep going. Don't accept the no's. Just say, okay, that's fine. If this is not where it is, then I need to move on to the next one. And then I need to move on to the next one. And you just keep, it's a numbers game. So all these things that I've given y'all, the tips, the things about using those job boards and whatnot, using the company job boards and everything, because we can talk about some of those as well. You just got to keep hitting the numbers, keep hitting the numbers. And those time frames that I told y'all about can really make a difference. Now, once again,
Yeah.
it's late. And I'm sorry that it's late, but hey, it gives you a competitive advantage. Well, that's what we're looking for, is giving you the competitive advantage. And you just have to keep hitting the numbers, hit the numbers, hit the numbers.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of us are night owls anyways, so
so there you go. If a lot of you are night
fair
owls, then
enough.
this will work out perfect for you. So keep in mind, once you have your experience, I'll just throw this out there. Once you have your experience and you're looking for that six-figure job, I don't know where y'all are at with your income and where you're planning on doing it, but let's say, for example, you're looking for that. You've got the experience, and now you're in that realm of a six-figure job and whatnot. Because I don't know where you might be starting at. Who knows? Or where you are today. Maybe you already are, or could be. You're probably like, why am I here in the first place? But when you start hitting that six figure, start looking and saying, okay, it's going to take me 3 months to find that thing.
Mm.
Now that 3 months is dedicated to the fact that, hey, because I'm looking for a higher pay. Now, in that 3 months, okay, maybe it's a little bit longer than what it needs to be because you are making that 6-figure thing, you're now a little bit more selective in what it is you're doing and so
Yeah.
forth, or selective in who you want to work for and so forth, because I'll be transparent with you. I've gone into an interview with this one company back in Portland, and we're in the interview going through it. 15 minutes in this hour-long interview, I say, hey, I want to pause for a second. I just want to let y'all know I'm not going to pursue this position. I will not be accepting any offer if y'all decide you want to have an offer. But if you like to use the remaining amount of time to pick my brain for what y'all are doing, I'm more than happy to. And they all stopped and they looked at me, and the one person leading the interview said, can we ask you why? And I said, well, you said certain things in the interview that says, hey, you're trying to do agile, but you don't want to use the agile terms because you've burned some bridges within the organization and it's a bad taste in the mouth. Well, that's one. You've listed those other kind of things. So, I listed off 3, 4 other different things that were kind of along that line. So why would I want to go up an uphill battle for this kind of situation? I can handle and do it. But here was the final kicker. I said, we're in this interview and it's a panel of 7. I see 3 of y'all here. The other 4 are not here. So based upon everything else you have shared with me, and that there's not even the majority here, I know walking in the door, I will not have over 50% support in what it is you're asking me to do. So why would I want to do it? Because you don't have these other 4 people here. And they all said, you're right. Because if we think about it, those 4 are not since truly supportive of what it is that we're trying to do. And this is what the position is. I said, now, with that being said, what would you like to know about your challenges you're having? Tell me your pain points now. I'll give you 45 minutes free. You tell me your pain points, and I'll tell you how to address your pain points because I provide solutions all day long. And that's what we did. And they said, can we have another meeting with you later? And I said, we can do that. We'll have another meeting. But after that, you can hire me as a consultant on a consultant hourly basis to come in and talk to you. But that will be it. I will not come work for y'all. So you just never know
Nice.
where the situation might be. But that's where I'm at. And that's where I was within that interview. I was able to say no. But
Yeah.
every situation's different and so forth like that. I didn't need it. I was willing to say, no, I know I need something else. I need to have, what is it? I need to have the right environment, the happy environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I have to have that. And so I need to make sure my environment's stable enough to where I could be happy and achieve and be successful. I've had companies fly me to Phoenix, Arizona every week, all the time for 2+ years in a row, every single week. And they said, would you like to move there? No. Well, why not? I need my trees. If I don't have my trees around me, I will not be a good employee. You take me out to the desert and have me live there and have my weekends there and all that, I will not do good. Now, going visiting and being there every week, I can survive that because I can go back home and have my trees on the
Yeah.
weekend and survive, but I cannot do the desert plane. I am sorry. And they're like, okay, not a problem. We'll keep flying you out there. You know, so things like that. So, it does come with time where you get into those kind of situations and positions. Don't expect it right off the bat. But just keep in mind that, the quality of life needs to be a factor in what you're trying to do. And sometimes we have to sacrifice. So I'm not saying you don't sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice. But what I preach and teach with my groups is we're going to get you back down to a 40-hour work week. They'll look at me like I'm crazy. And I said, nope, that's my goal, and this is how we're going to achieve it. You do what I ask you to do, we will get you there. And they're like, well, we're already doing 60. I said, yeah, well, we're going to get that fixed. We're going to get that done. Well, I don't know what management's going to say about that and everything. Don't worry about it. I've already told management, I already told you this, and this is what I've told them. Because when I tell management and start doing management training on what I do, I hit that page. I hit that slide in that presentation that flat out calls that out in front of their face. And I've had leadership say, you can't say that. And I said, well, too late. I've already said it, and we're already in the process of making that happen.
Right.
And they're like, what? And I said, yeah, that's why I'm here. I save y'all money. I will save you money, and
Right.
I'll
Let me
get you
do my
better
job.
quality. Let me do my job. And I have a record. I've saved millions of dollars here and there. I've increased process improvements by 120%, the whole 9 yards. I have the evidence and stuff to support it, and I do it every day where I'm at. It's just what it is. And that's what y'all will be doing whenever you get into whatever it is you're doing. Whatever you're doing has an end goal. Remember what the end goal is. Not always just you having a job. It's not always just making that company profitable, but what is that company doing? Think about the big picture. I talk about Jaguar Land Rover. You hear me talk about that from an R&D. Hey, we're doing things from an infotainment system thing. Here's what's going on, and this is what I taught my teams. We're here to do this. What are we doing with this? We're here to help make the less distraction so people can focus on the road for safety. We're looking at features that we can incorporate in the car to make sure there's not a child left in the car in the heat or a pet. We're looking at these kind of features for this, for the customer. We're looking at how we can make these things safer by having it less distraction. We even have what we call detox mode, to where when you're driving and everything, you have all this information coming across, you can hit this one little button and everything go down to the minimum of what you need to have. Here's your speed. Don't have any other distractions. It's like those Teslas, they have the little computer and they can have their little fireplace. I don't even want the freaking fireplace running. I don't want to see that distraction. So, you have to look at that. It's like, I'm working for a lab and everything that we're doing within that lab is for cancer patients. Well, hey, people, what are we doing? We're trying to perfect our processes, not so much to be more profitable, but if I can increase 120% per day of delivering cancer patient reports to the patient and their physician so they can make surgical decisions and life altering decisions, that's what we're here for. And that's what we did. So we have to sometimes look at what that next big picture is. It's like, I'm working for an insurance company. And so let's don't worry about this kind of things. What is the thing that we do with insurance that's the biggest thing? And they said, claims. I said, yeah. We want to make sure that we're doing our part so these claims don't get declined for something stupid because we failed to do something right on our side. We want to get this squared away so these claims are getting taken care of, because the last thing we want to do is have a claim decline for some stupid hiccup that winds up somebody loses a finger, let alone a hand or more. So you have to sometimes look at whatever it is, because I already gave you different industries. I can tell you about gas and oil and all this other kind of stuff, how this all applies and how you can look at these bigger pictures. You just look at for what it is you're doing, who you're doing it for, and what could be that bigger picture that could then also give you an extra value add about why you're doing it. So don't know why I got into that spiel, but there you go.
We understand.
Well, good
It's
deal.
all good information, and we definitely appreciate all your time.
Right.
Thank you.
Hey, not a problem. Well, whoever needs to stop the recording, let's go ahead and stop that recording.
All right.
I see some of this